Welcome to the Nerd Tutorial Podcast, a podcast offering discussions and tutorials on nerdy subjects for people who aren't necessarily nerdy themselves. With you today, myself is your nerdy tutor, George, and with me here today as well as my mom, owner of a child, I guess.
I own a child. I now have a baby Yoda.
We got her a baby Yoda.
I love my baby Yoda. She's sitting on my desk.
Although it's not...
He, she. We
don't
know.
We're not entirely certain.
Yeah.
Although, with all the stuff that's been happening in Star Wars, I would assume it'd probably be a woman.
Yeah.
I think that, and that's not a horrible thing at all.
Nobody ever identifies.
No, that's actually one of the kind of unique
We don't know which pronouns to use.
No. Well, speaking of pronouns.
Okay.
Well, not exactly pronouns here, but part of that goes into it here. So we actually got a little bit of a breaking news when we did this here. So we are recording this on February 13th, day before Valentine, and just this week on Wednesday, it was announced that the actress Gina Carano, again, who is a former MMA fighter who was playing the character of Cara Dune in the series, which, again, we both really praised. We both really liked her in that role.
Oh, she is perfect in that role.
Absolutely perfect. But she
looks like the cartoon if you would draw it.
Yeah, that was the thing. Like, if I wanted, I want a gruff ex-soldier. Okay, all right, but a woman. Gotcha, I can do that.
And she's beautiful, and she so fits the role.
Oh, absolutely. Again, she's a perfect fit for the role. However, unfortunately, she will no longer be in that role, as Lucasfilm has decided to part ways with the actress and will no longer have her in any future Star Wars projects. Now, this comes on the heels of her social media posts that have been dating back for a bit here now, but kind of came to a head here just this... I don't know if it was this week here or last week when she posted it here, but it kind of came to a head this week, where she posted that American conservatives were like Jews in Nazi Germany.
It's an interesting post because I think the point it makes the opposite point. Because the parallels that could be drawn right now, you have QAnon believers who are suggesting that Hollywood elite and Democrats are pedophiles who collect children and use children's blood to make youth elixirs, and this very much parallels some of the stories that were being told in Germany about Jews during the Renaissance and then again during the Hitler era in the 1930s that helped create an environment in which people would allow Jews to be arrested.
Yes.
So it's an interesting quote that she reposted somebody else's quote.
Okay.
But it's an interesting quote because it says that we're creating this environment in which conservatives are being treated like Jews were being treated in Germany, and it's not the Nazis who are really responsible for the arrest. Remember that people allowed them to be arrested because such hatred was created. And so I think, to me, as the lovely little liberal that I am, it has the opposite impact. I look at it and say, well, isn't that what QAnon's doing with this false narrative that all Democrats and Hollywood elite are pedophiles drinking children's blood? But it's interesting. But I want to look at this in a different way.
Okay.
She very quickly the following day, like Thursday or Friday, because this thing came down on Wednesday. Mm-hmm. By Thursday or Friday, she already had a movie deal with the Daily Wire. Yes,
which is a conservative media outlet.
Right. She already had a deal with them. What would stop somebody from purposely posting something that would get them fired so that they could go on to another opportunity if they were engaged in a contract that wouldn't allow them to pursue something else?
I think
it's a pretty blatant post.
It's a very blatant post, but it's not uncharacteristic for her either. Again, now keep in mind, she has also posted disparaging things about the Black Lives Matter movement. She's also made a point of peddling the false narrative that there was widespread fraud during the 2020 presidential elections. and she's also previously been transphobic on her Twitter. What you'll occasionally see from people who are LGBT
Right.
are transgender will identify themselves as certain pronouns for themselves.
I heard about her pronoun issue, that she didn't want to.
She recognizes herself as like a beep, bop, boop.
Yep, I read that.
And so, and again, which can be seen as be seen as disparaging to people who are of that community at the end of the day.
Right.
And like, again, she's clearly has very right-wing conservative values and principles that she's espousing at the end of the day. Whether that fits in a Lucasfilm and Disney sort of all-inclusive sort of environment anymore, I clearly don't think really does. And so
it's an interesting thing, because Disney, during my childhood, was very much family, and not just family oriented, but and not just espousing strong families, but really wholesome.
Yes.
Disney had and I would imagine probably still has all sorts of rules about what kind of shirts you can wear inside the park.
Yeah, there's a
list of things.
Yeah, again, I mean, like, I think a lot of that I think really does come down to trying to portray a certain image that nets them the most bang for their buck at the end of the day here.
Yeah.
And so, not to belabor the notion here anymore, in the wake of Carano being released by Lucasfilm, there have been calls on Twitter with the hashtag Cancel Disney Plus trending for people to boycott Disney over the firing. Mm-hmm. Which is...
I mean, I get that people see this as another stab at cancel culture.
Yeah, I don't... I see that as well. I don't necessarily I don't necessarily think that it's a fair analogy here. I mean, like, I don't. It's not cancel culture because it's not as if her views are being taken away from her at all or anything. It's rather the fact that this company doesn't want to deal with somebody who has these particular opinions online, which may be to the detriment of a lot of their fans, in which they are really trying to gain here at the end of the day. And there probably is a political math here at the end of the day that says, do we lose X, Y amount of people for having somebody like this on our cast, versus if we release this person, how many people do we potentially lose at the end of the day? And I think really with the wake of Twitter and everything out there, that it's in your best interest to be, try to be on the what is considered maybe the right side of certain things at the end of the day.
It's interesting because it actually is affecting lots of shows. Roseanne, obviously. Mm-hmm. The Bachelor right now has a storm brewing because it has as one of its bachelorettes this go around. One of the girls that the Bachelor is currently dating and is doing quite well on the show, Rachel. Pictures have come out of her at a plantation ball. That is apparently a tradition in the Old South to hold these plantation balls that recreate the era of slavery. Mm-hmm. And those pictures have come out, and it's come out that their past bachelorette, Hannah Brown, was also at an event like that. And of course, this season's Bachelor is black, in their attempt to get diversity. So they are they're undergoing a similar storm.
Yeah.
So it's affecting I think a lot of shows. I just wondered because they had tolerated her bebop boop.
Yeah.
And I get actually that there a lot of what is driving some of the political storm that we have right now is this sense that I'd like to go back to the days when I didn't have to worry so much about what I said. And that's not coming from me. I understand. I have transgender friends. I have bisexual friends. I have gay friends.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have the vantage point of understanding a different point of view, and of having watched someone who I went to high school with and our family's quite close to become transgender during the early 90s, when it wasn't as accepted, 20 years ago. And so I've also seen that struggle firsthand.
Yeah, and I don't... I think part of the thing there as well is that, you know, like the genie, the top is off the bottle here at the end of the day, the genie bottle here. Like you can't put the genie back in the bottle at this point. And I think it's incumbent on people to realize that what you say, you know, gets echoed across the entire world. And, you know, this is partly the reason why I don't post very often online at all to begin with, only because I don't want, you know, my opinions to be taken either in the wrong way or to be misinterpreted or twisted around at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Now, similar claims have also come out for Pedro Pascal as well. Because at one point here, back in 2018, he is previously equated the child migrants to being Jews in Nazi Germany, which I think is maybe a little bit more of an apt example at the end of the day. He's since removed that and apologized for that tweet.
Yeah.
But there have been people that have wanted to have him removed from the role as well. Now, previously, Gina Carano, as of time of writing here, potentially wasn't even going to be in the third season of The Mandalorian at all.
Well, let's get into this season, because I actually wondered if there was going to be a third season by the end.
That is actually up in the air potentially too. So let's get into the new season here.
But I still want to stick with I wonder, because the post that in question is pretty blatant. How much of that, and given the quickness with which he reached a deal with someone else, really how much of that is taking advantage of a situation and forcing a release?
Pedro Pascal or for Miss Carano?
For Miss Carano, for Gina Carano.
You
don't think so?
I don't think so. I mean, Star Wars is a pretty lucrative contract. I mean, they were literally about to make an entire TV series for her called Rangers of the New Republic.
I'd heard about Rangers of the New Republic. Okay.
And again, so this would have been a series that would have potentially starred, you know, Cara Dune in it, or would have been a featured role in it. Okay. And so I don't see...
You don't see her passing on that?
I mean, like, it's Disney money at the end of the day. I don't know how you pass up Disney money at the end of the day to be in a Disney feature here. Now, I know, you know, some people might have difference of opinions on Disney at the end of the day here. But again, I mean, like, especially if you're like, if they're making an entire TV series based around your character, that means that they probably want you to stick around for a while. And again, a lot of the new series which got announced after the second season of Mandalorian here were going to be 3 new TV series that would continue on Disney Plus, with them eventually culminating, again, all happening around the same time frame and same universe, would eventually all like cross and intermingle with each other. So there was a potential to have...
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. If they're all in the same time period, you know, is there the opportunity to have...
Mm-hmm. So Disney's actually done this once before with Netflix, actually, and Marvel. They had 4 individual TV series on Marvel that eventually teamed up in a crossover called The Defenders, or rather than the Avengers, The Defenders. And again,
name.
Which is there was a team in Marvel called The Defenders as well. It's primarily a British version. So instead of Shield, it was a organization called Sword. So again, the naming conventions always kind of are very cute. Sword and Shield.
Sword and Shield, that's cute.
And again, I mean, they've done this previously in the past. So, and again, Jon Favreau, who has been an executive producer on other Marvel projects, again, would not be too dissimilar from doing something similar like this with Star Wars here, especially in the case of pushing some of the other characters. Like Star Wars has made a big push for one of the major characters that was in one of the episodes here, Ashoka Tano, played by Rosario Dawson this season.
With the weird
braid thingies.
Yes.
Yeah, these are tendrils that come down her head. Again, she was a big part of Clone Wars, the CGI series here, and then she also made a reappearance in Rebels as well. And so she's been this really kind of cool fan character that I'm sure. And again, Disney's been making a really big, or not Disney, but Star Wars and Lucasfilm is making, a very important character along the lines here. Again, it's this. She is
a Jedi.
Yes and no, actually.
Yes and no. Okay.
Yeah. So she, based off her original story here, again, she's the former Padawan of Anakin Skywalker, and so eventually,
so in training.
Yeah. So again, like Anakin would have been to Obi-Wan at one point during episode 2.
but you have, an Obi-Wan series coming up.
Yes. So the new Obi-Wan series coming up is actually going to take the space between the end of the end of episode 3 and before A New Hope. So it's supposed to bridge that gap of what was Obi-Wan doing in that time frame while he was on Tatooine.
When he was becoming a hermit and watching over Luke, I assume.
Yes. So that it's supposed to take place during that time frame at least.
So are you going to see Luke during that?
If you do a very childish Luke, I would imagine, like some kid who gets to play Luke Skywalker. Hopefully nothing will befall him, the same kid that had to play Anakin Skywalker, because that guy basically right after the movies, right after the first movie hit, like I think he did 1 or 2 more roles and then disappeared and has had various issues throughout his life since then. Because again, a lot of the fans and people blame him for the direction that ended up going for the later Star Wars prequels.
That's not his fault.
No, it's not his fault at all, and as a result of, I think, online bullying and bullying from his peers as well. Because again, keep in mind, like he was only in like 3rd or 4th grade when he got tapped for that role. He went away for the summer and then came back and is like, "Oh yeah, you got to be in a Star Wars film." And now all of his classmates are basically just kind of like, "You sucked in the movie," like it. He's
and I have to say, online bullying has become such a
prevalent sort of thing.
Yeah, and really dangerous.
I'm not scoffing at it at the end of the day here. I mean, I just don't know a better way to describe it.
No. I think it's important to address it, but
yeah. So I mean,
it's become a thing where people who are especially hard hit are people who are on reality shows.
Oh,
who
yeah.
had a normal life and aren't at all prepared, I think, for what can happen.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. So,
okay.
But no, yeah. So let's go through the series here. We pick back up right after the events of the first one.
Okay, so this is season 2.
Season 2 happens pretty much right afterwards. Now, the Mandalorian, or our Mandalorian here, has been tasked with getting the child back to...
He now has a quest.
Yes, he now has a quest.
And the child is now his foundling.
Mm-hmm.
He's dad.
He's got a dad or an uncle, something like that, I guess.
He's kind of dad.
Oh, very much dad. So the first episode actually takes us back to Tatooine.
It's interesting. It's very much a Western.
Oh, yes. Again, a traveling Western.
It's a traveling Western. It's very much a Western. That episode, perhaps the most of any of them.
Mm-hmm.
Because they have to get rid of a dragon that travels underground.
A crate dragon, yes.
And they able to cobble together the sand people and the mining people who live in the village.
So the sand people, I think, are actually kind of the more interesting aspect here because, again, there are a bunch of those actors who were playing the sand people are actually deaf people or people who primarily communicate with ASL.
Yes, and he's able to communicate with them through ASL.
Mm-hmm.
I recognize it because Auntie Mary does ASL.
Yep.
She's hearing impaired, and so you get to watch him communicate, and Pedro Pascal is doing
ASL as well.
Doing ASL as well. So it's actually very charming, and he manages to have them all work together. And I love the scene in which, of course, the dragon dies.
Mm-hmm. Because he just kind of shoots out of it at one point.
Yeah. So Pedro, the Mandalorian has to basically sacrifice himself, and he goes inside the beast, which is huge, and ends up exploding it from the inside, and he shoots out
with his rocket pack.
Yeah. It's pretty cool.
So along the way as well, they meet a local sheriff that happens to have.
I like him. I hope we see him again.
He might be in Rangers.
He was really kind of fun. I like his attitude.
Mm-hmm. So there's another character.
He was a fun guy.
There's another character that might potentially resurface again, only just because he's been a fan favorite now for 2 seasons. Maze Mayhew. I was going to ask about that. Yeah.
I like him too.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love it. I love it. I just want more scenes of him and the Mandalorian together, just because it's so much fun to see them working against each other.
Well, but working with each other.
Oh, working with each other. Don't get me wrong, but again, one of them is very antagonistic to the other, and I'm okay with that.
One's very, very sarcastic and jaded, yeah, and the other's very idealistic and value driven. And so
again, they make a good buddy cop thing at the end.
Yeah,
of the day.
When we get to that episode, I love the ending.
Oh yes, very much so.
Yeah.
So you get through. So we get to the final. So the other thing we get in that very first episode is that he's looking for another Mandalorian to help him.
Yeah. So at the end of the first season, he gets the foundling. He gets responsibility, and he's perplexed because he doesn't know how he's going to find Baby Yoda's family.
Mm-hmm.
Baby Yoda needs to be with the Jedi.
Yes.
And one of the things, I guess no, it's a couple episodes forward, so we'll talk about that. But he's got to find other She tells him, other Mandalorian will help you. But you're going to have to go to them for help, and you'll have to find them. And because Mandalorian, by definition, sort of live underground.
Or not underground, but they live it's a very quiet society at this point here. Like, there's not a lot of.
Well, but remember when they're on Navarro, they come from basically underground.
Pretty much, yeah.
The sewer system.
Yeah, I mean, they're underground in the sense that they're not common.
Well, but people didn't really know they were there either. They just sort of sprung out of nowhere.
Yeah, in that particular case, yes.
Yeah. Okay, so he's got to find others, and he ends up bar hopping in various places. We get the lady mechanic from the earlier episode, who I'm charmed by her as well.
Oh yes,
I love the characters, and she's able to direct him, or actually goes into a bar and that person directs him.
No, she directs. She kind of points him as like, oh yeah, there might be a Mandalorian.
Somebody's been seen,
out in the middle, or somebody who looks like you, way out in the middle of the desert.
And so he goes, and this guy basically has Mandalorian armor that he found.
Doesn't just have anybody's Mandalorian armor.
Well, we don't know that yet.
You don't know that yet, but again, as fans, you would know this particular armor.
Oh, would you?
Oh yeah. It's again, you would immediately recognize the armor as being Boba Fett's armor.
Okay, because as not a fan, I didn't know.
Okay, yeah. So
I didn't know whose armor.
Yeah, you see this armor initially, and again, you think it's Boba Fett initially until he takes off the helmet, and then you look under it, and it's like, no, you don't look like Jango Fett at all.
Yeah.
Because remember that Boba Fett is the clone of Jango Fett.
Yeah.
At the end of the day here, but so a lot of us were kind of like, ooh, really, Boba Fett already? We were actually going to go there, and it didn't actually happen yet. Or at all yet, so ta-da. So,
but he's kind of found it. He's sheriff of the town. He's cleaned up the town quite a bit, and which is a theme.
Yes, trying to work with all the locals,
and organizing it. Yeah, and And they partner with the Sand People, and they go through that whole experience. And at the end of it, the Mandalorian collects the armor because the armor needs to go back to the rightful person, and somebody who's not a Mandalorian shouldn't have Mandalorian armor.
Mm-hmm.
It is the way.
That's the way. Yes.
That's the way. And so then you move on.
Actually, you go back to the hangar in Tatooine,
yeah,
where he's actually allowed the droids to come fix his ship a little bit.
Well, because now that he's had the nurse droid in season 1,
Mm-hmm.
who turned out to be quite loyal, he's much more trusting of droids.
Yeah, still got his hand on his gun, but I mean, or his blaster in this case, but more definitely more trusting and allowing of them to be there,
yeah,
and work on his ship.
Yep, yeah.
And the mechanic or the owner of the hangar here basically says, like, hey, like, I got a lead for you. This chick here knows how, I know a woman who knows where to find the Jedi at. He's like, well, really cool, yeah. Okay.
There's one on her island.
There's one on her planet.
Sorry.
So you got to take her there. The only catch is that when you're taking her there, you can't travel in hyperspace. You can only travel at impulse. And it's like, it's going to take, what would be...
Because she has...
Children's
eggs. She has eggs that she has to get back to the planet by a certain time so that her frog husband, she's a frog.
Yeah, oh yeah. So I don't think we've mentioned that here. She's some sort of like frog person that actually doesn't speak...
anything he can...
Basic or like the other major alien language that
is.
other aliens who can't speak basic.
Yeah. So he can't communicate with her.
Mm-hmm.
She has this
tank
of eggs.
Yeah, it's like it's like a backpack slung sort of like tank, I guess.
Yeah.
Which are her children that need to be fertilized.
But you can see them floating.
Yeah. And then I guess they need to be fertilized by her husband at a certain
Baby Yoda
point.
would like to eat them.
He has eaten quite a few of them.
Yeah, well, I think, yeah. Yeah, so...
This leads us into episode 2.
Yeah, this leads us into episode 2. And, of course, the fact that he can't go hyper speed
means that they gotta go, like, pretty slow.
And that they can be tracked.
Mm-hmm.
Very easily.
So they get tracked by 2 X-Wings from the New Republic. And he proceeds to... he's communicating with them, and he's putting on his beacon here. And they're like, are you X, Y, and Z? He's like, crap, they found me.
Yeah.
Make a run for it to this ice planet. Where he lands, sorta... but then kind of like crashes through. He
lands, but then the ice underneath him breaks, and he drops like 2 stories.
Mm-hmm. And it hurts his ship pretty badly.
Really, yeah.
And eventually, the frog lady decides she needs, she's going to explore a little bit, even though the Mandalorian is told him, no, don't
leave the ship.
Don't leave the ship.
Don't leave the ship.
Don't stay here. But no, she's cold. Obviously, she's an amphibious creature.
Yeah, she's amphibian, so she's cold-blooded. She finds a warm bath.
But yeah, she finds like a hot spring or something.
And meanwhile, Baby Yoda's gotten hungry.
Oh, yes. So, mind you, as kind of a semi-runny joke here, Baby Yoda's been opening up the tank and eating these, I guess, tadpole creature egg thingies, and as much as like the Mandalorian keeps stopping, it's like, no, stop that.
Yeah.
These are not food. Although Baby Yoda loves to eat, so that's perfectly okay with me. We never see Yoda eating at all, which has always kind of been interesting to me. But no, so while they're at the pool, they anger some of the locals. Locals being these like ice spiders, I guess is kind of the best way to describe them.
Yeah, well, I mean, when the ice spiders start Baby Yoda starts hatching the ice spiders, he goes to eat one.
Yeah, he eats like a ice spider that's kind of in an egg. He just kind of opens it up and like crunches on it, and then like
they start hatching.
All of them start hatching.
They start hatching.
Mm-hmm.
It's not pretty.
And then there's like a big one that comes. So first they're like Because again, first
mama spider comes.
So first they're like no bigger than like a teddy bear.
Yeah.
And then like the next ones are probably like the size of like your average sort of like golden retriever, I guess maybe. And then the next one is like the size of, like
a spacecraft.
or like a Winnebago, huge. I guess maybe.
Yeah.
It's like it's a big spider.
Yeah, if you're not happy with creepy crawlies, they don't really bother me much. But one that size certainly would.
Oh yeah, no. I don't.
This isn't Charlotte's Web.
Oh no. This was Charlotte's Web. Charlotte was on something that day.
Steroids,
cocaine.
Yeah.
Horse tranquilizers. Bath salts, definitely bath salts.
Yeah. So he has to defeat the spider before he can.
Well, so he's patched up the ship a little bit, so he's trying to get the ship started at least. Now, keep in mind, like, the ship's taken quite a bit of damage where, like, there's a literal hole in the hull.
Yeah, and they can only stay on the flight deck. They can't go anywhere else.
Yeah, in the cockpit, essentially.
Yeah.
And the spider is not helping the situation out at all. He's doing...
Spider's pissed.
Spider's pissed and trying to get into the ship here, which I can't remember the name. No, it has a name, but I can't.
The crest.
The crest. Yeah, he's trying to get into the crest, and thankfully, those X-wing pilots come back.
Yep. With
blasters in hand, and they basically shoot at the spider enough to kind of like get them to be like, okay, no more, no mas, we don't want it anymore.
And these are the ones that he was trying to outchase
mm-hmm.
to get away from because they knew that he had freed in season 1. He had freed a prisoner from a.
Well, he was in the incident where they were in episode 6, I want to say, where they were in the New Republic prison ship, and were trying to free people. We're trying to free a person out of it.
Yeah.
And they eventually go on to say, like, hey, had you just talked to us, like we might have overlooked this because at the end of the day here, like, they spoke highly of you because you actually, as much as you boarded a prison ship here and you should go to jail for that you saved part of the crew and apprehended the others on the crew the others in your team. Including Mayfeld at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So we're going to let bygones be bygones and say we didn't actually see you here at all at the end of the day. Had you just talked with us. Lesson learned, yeah. So now the crest is like bloodied and broken.
Really limping along.
It finally gets to...
Better than it is later.
Oh, yeah. Much better than it is later. So it eventually, like, hobbles its way to
the frog planet.
To the frog planet, where... So this is episode 3. And they drop off Frog Lady and her husband, who points him in the direction of a... General Akbar. Does that name mean anything to you?
Yes.
So this is the fish guy who says, it's a trap.
Yeah.
So it's an entire race. I can't remember the name of the species to save my life.
Well, it's kind of an amphibian planet.
Yeah, there's amphibious planets there. So he basically points out that we can take you to some Jedi if you'll follow us on our crab ship or our crabbing ship, I guess, or fishing trawler.
Yeah.
It's hard to tell what it is.
Yeah.
And they basically decided, you know what? There's a bounty on, well, there's not a bounty on the kid, no. But you know what? We're going to...
Well, there is a bounty on the kid. There's a huge bounty on the kid.
Nope. Remember, that got removed by Apollo Creed here at the end of episode 8.
But there's a reward for the capture of the kid.
Yeah, there's a reward for the capture of the kid.
That comes up later.
Yeah, so they decided that they want the kid, and they don't care about killing a Mandalorian to do it. And then so they've almost got the kid, underwater in a kind of a trap sort of situation.
Yeah.
But the kid's like locked in his little egg carrier.
By the way, how much did these creatures remind you of Pirates of the Caribbean?
Oh, right, yeah.
They look like
the sea people that are like on Davy Jones' ship
with the octopus faces.
Yeah.
They they reminded me a lot of Pirates of the Caribbean.
No, now that you mention it, I can certainly see it as well. Absolutely.
Yeah, got the face with the tentacle thing going.
Oh, absolutely.
Need to watch them talk because sort of, the whole thing's sort of animated.
Oh, it's very cool.
Yeah.
And again, all practical. A lot of that practical.
And
effects.
all that for a 40-minute show, 40-minute show.
Oh yeah, and again, throwaway characters in some respects.
Yeah, I mean, it's important to remember that if this were on broadcast TV, it would fill an hour because
the commercial breaks.
Because of commercial breaks and entering in and out of things.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's a lot of money for CGI for a 30 to 40 minute. I mean, it's rather posh that way. The whole thing.
Well, again, remember that they saved a lot of money on the filming locations because they all filmed it from kind of the same circular sort of area room because of the 3D type thing. And you'll see that on our I've linked the video for that in the podcast notes for last week's episode.
But yeah, just a heads up, look a lot like Pirates of the Caribbean.
No, absolutely. But then they get saved by 3 Mandalorians. So these are the Night Owls. The first one here is the leader of this is Bo-Katan Kryze. This is the same.
Do tell me that there's going to be a follow-up series with her.
So
she has possibilities.
Oh, you know who that is, though, don't you? That is Katie Sakhoff.
Who is Katie Sakhoff?
So Katie Sakhoff actually played the character of Bo-Katan in the Clone Wars animated series. But she's also very famously has chops in sci-fi stuff. She is the title character of Kara, and make sure I get this correctly, Kara Starbuck Theris in Battlestar Galactica.
Well, how could you not like somebody with the name Starbuck?
Oh, again,
because I am a coffee girl.
Oh no, absolutely. And again, so keep in mind,
I've got my cup right here.
Again, from the original TV series of, there was a character named Starbuck whose call sign was Starbuck, and this is a very on the same kind of lines of like Cara Dune sort of level character, where it's like this gruff sort of like not female but not necessarily feminine sort of identity doesn't matter on a battleship where everything's trying to kill you.
And they've met before. Or is this their first meeting? Is this the first meeting?
This is their first meeting, but for us, if you're Star Wars fans, you remember seeing her from both the Clone Wars and again in Rebels years later.
Okay.
And so to us fans here, like, she is not necessarily a new character. It's kind of like, we know who that is. And again, if you, in your case, obviously, you don't know who that is.
Who that is. But she makes a very interesting comment. When she talks about she is actually Mandalorian and she's a real Mandalorian
from Mandalore.
But and the 3 of them are, and they don't wear their masks, their helmets all the time.
So yeah, so actually to speak,
she makes the
comment here. Yeah, no. So I have the notes here for this literally. So, so again, when we actually see other Mandalorians in the TV series, in Clones and Rebels, they take off their helmets all the time. So, the fact that we see the Mandalorian not taking off his helmet would let some of us to think like, is this a new thing with the Mandalorians, or
but you hear in season 1 that nobody can take off the helmet. You can't take off the helmet.
You're not supposed to take off the helmet. No.
You wear the helmet. It is the way.
And we later understand.
And he can't eat in front of people, and he's in a restaurant ordering food for Baby Yoda, and he says, "Well, I'll get something to go on my way out."
Again, and so in meeting Bo-Katan here, we actually learn from her that our Mandalorian is a part of a religious fanatic cult known as Children of the Way. So his particular sect.
So because he's a foundling.
No, not just because he's not the case that he's a foundling. No, it's just that this particular sect of Mandalorians are not common, and they're very much underground. These people follow what was considered at one point a religious faith called the Way, that was very popular that was popular in Mandalore culture centuries ago.
Prior to
the current times.
Or prior to the wars.
Not even some into the beginning of some of those wars. It was still around, and so it's gone out of favor since then. I'm trying to think like a good example of it here. Like, and not to speak ill of any other religions in this particular case, but I guess maybe like Druidism, maybe,
Okay.
or something of that
Well,
kind of
that's
line.
not speaking ill. I mean,
No.
that's just...
Again, it's not a common thing at the end of the day, but they are out there, I guess is the best way to put that. I mean, I'm again not trying to disparage anything.
Well, I mean, there are people who would describe being Orthodox Christian as being out there because it's hearkening to an older way. We don't have altar girls; we only have altar boys because the original apostles were all male.
Yeah,
original
so-
disciples were all male, and there are people who view that that way. So
and
I get it.
And again, from our Mandalorians' perspective here, again, Mandalorians you've been told your entire life are this particular way, and again, Mandalorians are not a common thing. To the point,
Right. Well, very few people have seen them, and
then again,
when he's asking around, that's the response. No,
yeah,
never seen
so
anybody
you've
like
seen-
you.
No, I've never seen anybody like you. And again, his title, again, most people call him Mando because they
He
don't.
is the Mandalorian.
Yeah, because again, he's the only Mandalorian anybody's ever seen.
Yeah.
And again, this is kind of what you would think similar to like a Jedi because you don't see or
But
hear.
everybody
a lot-
knows what Beskar is.
Yes, because again, like it's again legendary armor.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Yeah.
So also amongst that crew there is a guy named Axe Wolves.
I love the name.
His name is Axe, AXE.
Yeah,
Wolves,
Wolves.
WOVES minus the L.
Yeah.
The other individual there, which is probably one of my favorite people here in this entire thing, is Koska Reeves.
Uh-huh.
Better played by a lady named Mercedes Vernado, also better known as Sasha Banks from the WWE.
Oh, really?
Yes, who did a lot of her own stunts, including WWE moves and wrestling moves. In fact, actually, when they were going through the process of doing her hair up in a certain way here, she purposely did it. She purposely asked them to do it in a certain way that could be easily cosplayed by other people, so they could cosplay as her and have her unique hairstyle.
That's cute.
She's also
So very aware.
yeah, and keep in mind, like WWE wrestlers are very much into cosplay at the end of the day. Here, there's been a number of wrestlers who have purchased wrestling attire to match certain comic book heroes and other people here. Again, famously Sasha Banks for the first women's Royal Rumble back in 2017. Yes, 2017 here. Wore a wrestling outfit attire that was similar to Wonder Woman.
Really?
Yeah, so she has this particular
That's quite an icon to...
mimic. Yeah, again, and other wrestlers like Seth Rollins, who is another one here. He has done one of the Ice Kings from Frozen Thrones before. It came to WrestleMania like that. He came to I want to say it's SummerSlam in looking like Thanos.
Oh, really?
Now, mind you,
With the glove?
no, actually, he tore his bicep and his right leg. So his right leg, his boot was all gold with the little stones at his toes.
Uh-huh.
So that was his Infinity Gauntlet because he has a move where he called the Stomp, where like you kind of arch your back upwards like you're trying to rise, like a not like downward dog, but kind of like as you're kind of like on all fours. And he basically jumps on your back with his foot and slams you back down into the mat. So with
nice
his right, yeah, he's actually been portrayed on and off as a good guy and as both a babyface and a heel. Famously, also the New Day have come out in different sort of cosplay gear. They came to WrestleMania one day as Saiyan warriors from Dragon Ball Z.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah. So again, there's been a number of like. It's been done. You know, there's a lot of sometimes it's been done when again special events will come out in specialty gear or gear that's mimicking something else going on. Like some wrestlers have gone out in gear that's of their favorite football team, or any sort of like recent sort of stuff here at the end of the day. For the Royal Rumble, the New Day actually came out with gear based off of their fallen friend Brody Lee from AEW because he tragically passed away here very young recently too. So yeah, and again, really kind of a cool guy at the end of the day. Was a bit of veteran of wrestling for years and was also one of those guys that took care of you in the back room, in the locker room.
Yeah.
And again, just very much left like this indelible mark of like, we lift up everybody else and we get better because it makes us look better too. But you get people to be better and you help them out when necessary. Again, a very beloved wrestler at the end of the day. It was very sad to hear of his passing, unfortunately.
Aw.
So, but no, yeah, again, the WWE star in this, and she purposely shot her stuff over the course of 2 or 3 weeks.
Uh-huh.
And still had to have stunt doubles because she didn't want to interfere with her WWE career. Because famously, there is a wrestler known as Lita who actually was acting on a TV show, did a stunt, and broke her neck.
Oh my gosh!
Forcing her to be out of action for nearly a year and a half to 2 years.
And that's because when you're doing it on a wrestling stage, it's all matted and...
You got a lot more matting, and you have professionals that have done these moves and know how to do these moves as well. I mean, you've practiced them,
right.
Dozens and dozens of hundreds, if not times, and you perform them, on such a routine basis that, like, when you go to do it here, like, you know how to do it,
Yeah.
People who, and you know the correct way to do it versus stunt people who, may have done it maybe 2, 3, 4 times before you actually do it here, may not know the best way to catch a person or how to fall correctly. And especially with wrestling here, like, it's really a matter of, like, you lift somebody up and you throw them, but that other person has to know how to fall and land at the end of the day too. So you have to so you put a lot of your faith in the person that's picking you up and throwing you at the end of the day to make sure that they give you enough control that you land on your back properly. So you get all the impact over your entire back to minimize the amount of force that goes into any one particular thing.
Spread. Yeah.
Yeah. So, because again, all that energy and crashing down to the mat, if you did that in just one single spot, like, you could do a lot of damage and bruising.
Takes all the impact. Yeah.
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 Which is literally the first thing they teach you in wrestling is how to fall. You literally spend weeks learning how to fall properly.
Yeah.
Before you're ever allowed to even just like, great, now you get to lock up and learn how to do that. It's like, wait, what? I don't have to fall anymore? Nope. Your back should be nice and firm now, but you need falling's a big deal. So you get to meet the Night Owls, and
she makes the comment, "Oh, you're one of those."
Yeah, you're one of those weird guys. That's like the weird
old
sect.
lore, yeah.
They go and raid an Imperial ship.
She's not real upfront about what the reasons are.
No, she eventually makes a point of saying, like, join us. We're trying to take back over Mandalore. And again, for our Mandalorian here, is like, no, Mandalore is like a cursed place. You don't go there.
Go back there.
You don't want to go back there. It's nothing but, like, it's bad. Why would you want to go to something bad?
Her thing is the restoration of the Mandalorian race, all living together in one place rather than being spread out.
Yeah. Again, the restoration of her people, essentially. Because, again, keep in mind, she is technically the leader of the Mandalorian race of Mandalore.
At this point, yeah.
In theory. Keep in mind, like, during the Great Purge that's kind of happened between the end of the that happened kind of between Rebels and when we get to this point here has happened. Because another character that we learn here, Mr. Moff Gideon, has a certain weapon.
We have met Moff Gideon before.
Yes, we have met him.
He was in season 1.
He was in season 1, 7 and 8, in episodes 7 and 8.
And in an earlier episode 2, wasn't he?
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
I don't recall that earlier episode offhand.
Yeah.
But he's got a certain weapon with him as well. That's very key to the Mandalorian lore.
Yeah.
He's got the Dark Saber.
Yeah. So which is interesting because it's
a MacGuffin thing.
Yeah.
It's very much a MacGuffin thing.
Yeah.
So episode 3 pretty much ends with him not really getting any closer to where he needs to get to at the end of the day.
He's just getting frustrated.
So he decides
because the Night Owls don't know where the Jedi are either.
No. And so then at this point here, he decides, you know what? I need to go take a visit back to, not home, I guess, but like where it all started.
Back to Navarro.
Yep. So he gets back to Navarro, in his busted down ship.
Needs repairs.
It very much needs repairs. So he gets back there. So this is, again, now we're into episode 4 at this point. He gets repairs. Yeah. I'm trying to remember if there's anything else that happens between here, episode 4. Again, once he gets, because again, like, he's busted down ship, he's got to get back home.
Well,
get it repaired.
and he leaves the child in the school. The town has been totally cleaned up. So when he gets back to Navarro, it's a real surprise.
Yeah.
Guess who the sheriff is? The marshal.
Cara Dune.
Oh my God. And Gideon or Greaves.
Yes, Greaves
is now the administrator.
Yep, he's kind of like the mayor of the city.
Yeah,
and he's actually enjoying it for the most part.
Yeah, and he seems to be good at it. And they've got a real school going, and you get to see the kid go to school.
Mm-hmm. He steals the kids' macaroons. Yeah,
he steals these blue macaroons that this kid is eating in class. He asks for one first, and the kid says no.
Don't mess with the kid. Don't mess with the 50-year-old with the Force.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they don't know. I mean, because they're all whispering behind him. He's the new kid in school, and
he looks different from everybody else.
He looks different, yeah. And he looks much younger. He doesn't look his age,
No, he doesn't.
Yeah.
Very good looking for 50.
Yeah.
It's got the reverse Benjamin Button system going.
Yeah.
And essentially what they're looking for here is they're going to help fix up his ship, and they're looking for some additional information, and I think they're going to find it at this abandoned Imperial facility that's nearby.
Yeah.
And once they get to this abandoned facility, they kind of realized
it's not abandoned.
It's not abandoned. There's still quite a bit of people here.
Yeah.
And now again, when you see these people here, you're kind of like, why were those other stormtroopers in shitty armor? These guys have nice, clean, polished armor.
Yeah. It's all looking pretty new.
Again, more individuals from the 501.
Yeah.
And eventually we get to this car chase is the best example to describe it, really. They've launched they go into the facility here trying to find information here. And try to also just get rid of it too. Because again, like, it's Imperials, we don't want them anywhere near us. And so they come to find the original doctor they find data logs from the original doctor. And talking about the baby here. And
they realize they're harvesting the baby's blood so they can clone it, is my inference.
My inference as well is to potentially clone it, because again, his outfit seems like the Caminos from episode 2 potentially, but it's not well established what they want to do with the baby's blood or anything in that particular either.
But to me, the image of the Doctor has changed a little bit from what it was in season 1 too. Now he looks a little more almost cartoonish.
Yeah,
and
I can see that.
And kind of
sniveling.
Kind of reminded me actually of the bad guy in Roger Rabbit. The Christopher Lloyd character in Roger Rabbit.
The judge. Whew. Actually, fun note for that particular character, the judge, which is again such an interesting. That movie in and of itself is very interesting for the behind the scenes. Because again, I mean, like the amount of work they went into just to make that. Christopher Lloyd never blinks in the entire movie. He's also got this non-existent wind that just occasionally furlows his little cape that he's kind of got for his jacket. It just like occasionally you just see it, and he's just like turning around and he's just standing still. It's just this light wind underneath him that's just blowing this around, and again, never blinking ever.
Pretty cool. But so the Doctor kind of reminded me a little of that.
I can see that, yeah.
Kind of.
So then we get kind of this cool chase sequence where they've gotten this sort of like armored personnel carrier, I guess.
Yeah.
And they've sent out speeder bikes, and Greaves has gotten like the back cannon and is shooting down the bikes, the speeder bikes. Meanwhile, they decide, you know what, we're going to send TIE fighters now.
Yeah.
And they launch TIE fighters after this thing, and it gets back to town. But again, like we haven't seen the Mandalorian for a little bit because he's gone off back to the city to try to go get the kid.
Yeah.
Come to find out, he's in the crest. He's in the Razor Crest, and it's all fixed up.
Yeah.
Like brand new.
Yeah.
With all of his crap still everywhere inside of it. And they've figured out the next place to go to now. So he comes in and he saves the crew, the people down on the planet, and he knows the next place to go to now.
But he needs... No, it's actually after this one that he needs Mayhew. Okay.
Oh, no, we got 2 more episodes before that, actually.
Okay.
So next we get to episode 5 here, and we get to meet Ashoka Tano.
A real Jedi.
A real Jedi-ish.
Yeah. But what he's tasked with, so he lands on this, so he takes the new and improved and...
In nice new sporty crest, all fixed up. He takes it to this place, and when he gets to the city, so prior to this,
when he gets to this, okay.
So prior to this, we see Ashoka Tano just annihilating these people in fog, and basically saying, like, you have until tomorrow to leave and give me the information I want. Otherwise, when I come back, I'm taking everybody out. And so he arrives, like, I guess the next day here, and meets, and he's walking through the city. He sees just subjugation
everywhere,
point blank. I mean,
he tries to talk to somebody. He's told he can't talk to them.
No, yeah, nobody will want to deal with him either because he's an outsider. Doesn't want to deal with him. They go meet the local magistrate, I guess their name is
magistratress. Yeah.
Who says, like, I'll give you this really cool Beskar staff I have.
I have this.
Or this really cool, like, pike or lance, whatever you want to call it here.
It's big.
It's nice and tall. I'll give you this pure Beskar lance here if you go and kill the Jedi.
Which he acknowledges it belongs to your people.
Yeah, it belongs to your people, and I will return it back to you. And he's already like, well, I kind of just wanted to go meet with the Jedi, but I mean, I'll come back for this later.
But she wants the Jedi captured and
killed.
Yeah.
Well, because the Jedi is basically saying, I'm going to come back for you.
Yeah.
And he goes out to go find Ashoka Tano.
Yeah.
And Ashoka Tano basically tries to kill him. But again, that Beskar armor really does deflect lightsabers.
Yep.
And eventually, this is also where we kind of get the cool name as well that we hear as well.
Well, okay, so, but then he introduces her to the child. He kind of says, well, wait,
hold on. I'm here to return this. And she's like, that's not mine.
Yeah. But she knows his name.
Yeah. They've actually met before.
They have met before, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, we learn that the child's name is Grogu.
Not a pretty name.
Doesn't roll off the tongue.
No.
I bet she's a looker when she gets older.
Yeah.
And that the child was one of the few individuals that was saved from the Jedi Temple during its sacking at the end, during the events of Episode 3 here.
Yeah.
Roughly 28 years ago by this point here, give or take. Yeah, about 28 years ago. And as a result here, like, he's been in hiding, but because he's been in hiding and has been around other Force users here, he hasn't really been practicing and using the Force regularly enough to be good at it.
So he's kind of untrained. The other thing she says that I find is really interesting, she says he has a lot of anger in him, and that's dangerous if he's untrained.
Yes.
So she won't take him on because she recognizes that Grogu is attached to the Mandalorian, and B, she says he has a lot of anger, and she knows that can be dangerous.
Yeah. And now keep in mind, I mean, like, she knows that's kind of dangerous as well because, again, Anakin Skywalker was a child, and now part of the story going into Ashoka Tano here is that by the end of Clone Wars, she leaves the Jedi Order because she was framed for a crime. That the Jedi immediately said, like, yeah, she's the one who did it here on somebody else's say-so. And so even though after she was proven innocent of the crime, she still believed that the Jedi were going in the wrong direction. They were becoming too militaristic, and they were overusing their authority, and they were becoming...
the rebellion was using them.
Yeah, or so much that...
They were picking sides.
Yeah, the Republic was... that they were picking sides of the Republic, and they were becoming more peacekeepers rather than, like this, religious sort of, like...
Right.
do-gooders at the end of the day.
Yeah.
She eventually kind of comes back a little bit to help them out. But this happens also on the same day that Order 66 occurs. And nearly dies, and so she believes that all the Jedi are fully gone by this point. Having only met a few remaining individuals.
Yeah.
When we see her again is in Rebels, which occurs between like 5 years before the events of A New Hope.
Uh-huh.
She's gotten a lot older. She's much better trained in the Force, kind of like how she is now.
Yeah.
And she's actually kind of helping teach another kind of another former Padawan that escaped the Purge of the Jedi, and a new Force-sensitive kid as well, named Ezra Bridger. During the course of Rebels, she actually, again, she doesn't realize that Anakin Skywalker has become Darth Vader at all either. And so they have this massive fight, and again, everyone's like very fearful of like don't cross Darth Vader. Like that's a serious.
Yeah, watch out for that MF.
That's a big MF right there. You don't go near him. And Ashoka can actually kind of stand toe to toe with Darth Vader, but then realizes during the event here that it is Anakin Skywalker, and the two of them are actually one, and she's actually set to die. Or her status at the end of the episode assumes that she died.
Oh, okay.
And then so she doesn't appear for another 2 seasons or 2 years time span. She gets saved again by going from this weird world between worlds where like has the ability to kind of go throughout time and pull people out of it as necessary. So she comes back to life seemingly by going through a time warp. But she disappears at the end of it because she should have died, and so she doesn't think that she should even be here anymore. She goes on kind of this religious quest.
Okay, so this is during her religious quest.
Well, at this point, by the end of Rebels here, which is basically episode 6 here is when it ends technically.
Uh-huh.
There's a character again, Ezra Bridger, who is this Jedi in training, who saves the entire crew of the cast of Rebels. And so it's her and the other Mandalorian that's a part of that crew that are actually going out and trying to find their friend.
Oh, okay.
So, because he's been missing now by this point for about 10 plus years. He got hyperspaced by space whales, to who knows where.
Okay.
And they're trying
what
to
are space whales?
There's these weird space whales where like they travel via hyperspace. It's weird. They only come up in this one episode, and then I've never seen them ever again.
Are they an animal?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like a big they're the size of a Star Destroyer.
Okay.
Big whales.
They just float out in space.
They just float out in space and travel via hyperspace,
Okay.
occasionally munching on space debris and background stuff to recharge, and then travel again through hyperspace to wherever they're going to
Their form
next.
of algae.
Yes.
Okay. So part of what also happens here that I found I wasn't sure how to feel about was she tries to get Grogu to do a couple of things,
Mm-hmm.
and she can't. He's resistant of her. That's when he's very touchy. He's angry.
Yeah. You give it a try.
And you give it a try, and he's able to use the knob that Grogu
Little
likes.
yeah.
Yeah, the little ball that fits on the top of it. Yeah. He's able to use that, and it's like playing fetch. It felt like even his congratulations, his response to it.
He was like, "Great job, kid! Yeah, that's awesome!" Like kind of the same way you would
A dog.
Yeah, unfortunately.
I'm just saying.
No, you're not wrong, but I mean, like you'd kind of also have that kind of reaction to a 4-year-old that caught a ball for the first time. Like, way to go there, Kevin! Like, good job. That's my boy. Way to go! Like, it's
Okay.
like I don't think it would be unusual, but like I see the analogy. I guess maybe.
Yep.
But no. So Ahsoka doesn't necessarily want to train him at all, but points them in kind of the right direction. So
she tells them where they need to go,
mm-hmm.
that he needs to decide for himself, that there's a place where he can go, a temple.
There's a temple that they can go to.
And
that he can meditate, and if he meditates hard enough, another Jedi will reach out to him
hear
and find
him
him.
and find him. Yeah.
So before that, though, to finish off episode five here, they go into the town again, and our Mandalorian basically just like wipes the floor with everybody else.
Yeah, so they go back in. It's like a fortress almost.
Yeah, very much a fortress here.
And he releases. I guess they're holding. Was the one guy a Jedi? What was he? He was some sort of.
So they were just holding people because they broke the law. They broke the whatever rules were in place, and they were just kind of holding them, kind of like you would in a gallows almost. So you can mock them and kind of like, this is what'll happen to you. And there's these pain walls where, like, if you lean against the wall ever so slightly, you get shocked. With the intention being that obviously, like, you're going to get shocked because eventually you can't stand still. You got to move around, or your body's going to get tired. You're going to lean up and you just get shocked the entire time.
Yeah.
He frees those guys and dispatches the goons and robots that are there in the city. While Ashoka Tano actually fights with the woman with this Beskar staff and beats her.
Yeah.
So what's not initially apparent here is why she's in the town and what she's here for.
Right.
You initially think she's here for good.
Yeah.
Because obviously, like, freeing these people would be a good thing.
Right.
What she's actually out there for, she's actually looking for information for Grand Admiral Thrawn, who in Ashoka. So again, there's going to be a TV series called Ashoka Tano here, and Rosario Dawson is going to lead the title character here. And I'm pretty sure this is going to be about trying to find Grand Admiral Thrawn, who knows the last known whereabouts of Ezra Bridger at the end of the day. So there's a continuity on here.
Okay.
Happening, and so
I wasn't necessarily picking up on that.
No, and again, and you wouldn't unless you were.
I know she was looking for that one older gentleman.
Yeah, so Grand Admiral Thrawn.
Well, no, there was somebody there that she was. There was a older Asian gentleman.
Yes, so that is titled character's name is Governor Wing.
Okay.
And apparently, again, like again at this point here. She's trying to. My understanding is she's trying to find information on General Thrawn in order to be able to find Ezra Bridger. Is the assumption here? Whether that's the case or not, I'm not 100% certain.
Okay.
But that's the case here. So it leads us into episode 6, where we get to.
We get to meet some other old friends.
Other old friends. Now, the planet that they land on is a planet called Tython.
Like Python, but with the teeth.
Yes. Tython is an important planet in the Old Republic, circa 20,000 years before the events of A New Hope. Because that's the planet that's supposedly the first planet of the Jedi. The first temple that was ever built for the Jedi was built there.
It's a cool-looking temple.
Oh, yeah. Oh, well,
very Stonehenge-ish.
The remains of it, yes. But there used to be
Stonehenge on a mountain.
Yes, very, very Stonehenge-esque.
Yeah.
And so the Mandalorian lands the crest there, and he places Grogu on the stone on the temple that's apparently supposed to communicate with other Jedi. Nothing happens for a while.
Nothing happens for quite a while. He's just kind of sitting there, and he's playing, and he's looking at a butterfly, and
just hanging out. Hanging out with Uncle Mando.
Yeah.
Just kind of chilling. And then another ship kind of lands, and if you're familiar with what the ship in previous films, you'll know whose ship that is technically at the end of the day. But there's a ship that lands. It's not inherent which ship it is. And come to find out, and so the Mando's like, okay, well, we got to go. There's other people here now.
Yeah.
And now Grogu is actually like channeling the Force, and
he's got a force field around him.
Mm-hmm. You can't get to.
He can't get to him. Can't pick him up. Can't can't break the force field. He's like, no, we got to go there. The people, oh, okay, I guess I'll defend you.
All right, well, you do what you need to do here. I'll go down there and try to stop them.
Yeah.
And eventually what you find is this older gentleman that looks an awful lot like Jango Fett.
Yeah.
And this is actually Boba Fett.
He wants his armor back.
He's been following the Mandalorian. He's like, I'd like to have my armor back now, please.
I've been following you.
He looks kind of like a sand person almost.
Yeah.
Got like very similar robes. He's got one of their staffs. And he's basically just like, I would like my armor back now. No, it belongs to the Mandalorians. No, that armor belongs to my father, and thus it belongs to me. You know, and I can show you the lineage on it. You know, because he's actually being like fairly diplomatic about it.
Yeah.
You know, like not being aggressive about it. There's another individual that's there as well that you might have seen beforehand as well. Fennec Schnode.
And it's such an interesting name. Not sure, you know, because it's almost kind of Irish, but not really.
So this is Ming Na Wen, who was a guest star on one of the episodes in the previous season, presumably left dead. And she's been saved through the help of some cybernetics by Boba Fett. And now she's acting as his bodyguard, associate, I guess. The relationship's not confirmed, but so much as that you know the feeling of that, like...
They're partnered together.
They're partnered together.
It doesn't seem to be romantic.
And she's working for him, not working together.
Well, but they do explain that because she says she's in his service because she owes him for something.
Well, for saving his life. For saving her
life, yeah. So she's in his service.
Mm-hmm. So while they're arguing over this armor...
Somebody else arrives. Turns out everybody's been tracking the poor crest.
Yes, because they've put a tracker on it.
But they've both put a tracker on it. You've got two trackers on it.
Mm-hmm.
You need to have some sort of device so you can tell whether or not there are trackers on your ship.
You got one of those like metal detector and trackers.
Well,
things.
you know, they have them for bugs.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be able to figure that out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just seems to me.
So it's the Empire. The Empire Remnants have found...
it's a bunch of
the Razor Crest here, and have basically decided, you know what, we're going to do Stormtrooper things.
Yep.
And then they meet the Mandalorian and Fennec Schnode, and they're just like, we may have not brought enough ships.
Yeah.
There were not enough Stormtroopers.
Well, she very cleverly gets them to shoot at her to loosen this huge stone, and then she, you know, puts all her might behind it and sends this huge stone rolling down the hill and just takes out like 6 or 7 of them.
Oh yeah, Stormtrooper's gonna Stormtrooper.
Yeah.
They're not called cannon fodder for nothing.
Yeah, and she takes out their cannon, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, they're trying to set up like this artillery battery or something.
Yeah. So she even takes out that.
So
cool chick.
Mm-hmm. And meanwhile, while this is all happening, Boba Fett has disappeared conveniently. And comes back in his armor.
Yeah.
Now keep in mind, like when you see his armor has been...
Which means he's gone into the crest.
Which means he's gone into the crest, he's picked up his armor, and again, his armor is all like scratched up, beat up looking, like all the paint's off it at this point here. It looks as if it's been... It looks like a car from like 1940, like the 1950s. It looks like it's just limping
along. It's like seeing a station wagon.
Yeah. It hasn't gone through a car wash, and its paint's flicked off, and like...
Because remember, this is the armor that the sheriff back in the Dragon Town had found and was wearing.
Well, found in a Sarlacc pit, which means that it got eaten for a while. And it stayed in relatively good condition here, too.
Yeah. Well, because even Sarlacc body juices can't
touch Beskar.
Yeah.
Beskar's a good thing to have if you got it.
Yeah.
So they eventually... so at this point here, like, the Imperials are kind of like, you know what?
They have called the cavalry, as it were.
They've called the cavalry, and they're trying to leave. And Boba Fett's like, no, I got this. Pulls down this little what looks like a little radio antenna on his top of his head. It's actually a targeting antenna.
Yeah.
Pulls it down, goes over his eye, and he shoots the rocket out of his back. And just,
obliterates one ship so that it
blows up, and then
it blows up, and it blows up onto the other one.
Yeah,
because there are two ships.
There's two ships.
To which somebody says, Fennec, was Fennec nice shooting?
Mm-hmm.
And he says, well, I was aiming for the other one.
Yeah. Again, nice little serious moment here. Then the cavalry shows up.
Yeah. The cavalry shows up. And what is the cavalry?
The cavalry are these, like, mechanized super troopers, I guess. I don't remember the exact
name. They are the dark troopers.
Yes, the dark troopers. They're these entirely mechanical robots that don't give a flying F.
Oh my God! Yeah, no, they're pretty incredible.
Mm-hmm.
They make the hunter bots that we meet in season 1 look like nothing.
Oh yeah,
because I was pretty impressed with the hunter bots.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, and these things are just like nope, new level.
They are dark. They are black. They are
red eyes. Again, like personification of evil robots. I mean, like, these could be Terminators if they were just in a slightly different finish.
Yeah.
Chrome finish instead of a glossy black finish.
Yeah.
So Grogu at this point here has kind of stopped channeling the Force and like passed out. So they've just kind of like fly in via jetpacks and kind of just yoink and fly up. And then at the same time, though, then a Star Destroyer above them just kind of like and just blows up the Razor Crest.
Yeah, the Razor Crest is gone.
Oh my goodness, it's splattered into different pieces. Only kind of remaining thing that the Mandalorian can kind of get out of it was the Beskar rod staff thing.
The staff survives.
Yes, well again,
that's
Beskar.
The only thing, yeah.
And,
but the starship has the baby.
Mm-hmm. The Death Star, that Star Destroyer has the baby, and it zooms off to nowhere. He also finds this little ball that Grogu liked to play with too.
Yeah.
The one thing that is missing from this though, he loses his sniper rifle. He doesn't have a sniper rifle because he left it on the ship, so his cool gun is gone.
The little pointy guy.
It was cool because again, like it disintegrated people, but also shocked people.
Yeah.
So that because again, he doesn't have it in later episodes, unfortunately. So now he's bumming it along with Boba Fett, who who
kindly takes him on. I mean, he doesn't have to.
No, and he's kind of like, yeah, I can hang with you. You're a cool cat.
Everybody understands that the baby is special. That's the one thing that comes across in all of this is that everybody understands and is actually kind of willing to be part of his quest, because the one general acknowledgement is that baby is special.
Yes.
We don't like the baby is really like the new hope. We know
this. We need the baby. The baby's a good thing. We must protect the baby.
Yeah. So I think everybody's
nobody puts baby in the corner.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
So it comes up pretty early in the next one.
Mm-hmm, yeah, so we get to episode 7 here, and this is probably one of my favorite episodes of this entire thing here.
I have some disappointments, and I may surprise you with this.
Oh, really? So episode 7 is the one with Mayfield in it again.
And I have to say, I really like him.
You really like? I like Bill Burr as well.
And I like them together because they're such opposites, but there is a bond there.
Yeah,
there especially is a mutual respect,
and at the very end of the episode, there's definitely a mutual respect in that.
Yeah, so some surprising things here. They end up having to go. So he gets Cara Dune to spring Mayhew.
Yeah, so Mayhew
because he needs someone who has Imperial codes.
Well, not so much he has Imperial codes, so much as that he has information on Imperial, and he was a former Imperial agent. He was a former Imperial sniper,
right? And
he would know how to find Moff Gideon here at the end of the day, because he apparently was working for Moff Gideon. Now, the way it's described here is that on whatever ship that they're on, like he doesn't know where its physical location is at any given time, obviously because it travels.
Right.
But he knows how to find it, and the only way to find it is get to an Imperial terminal to look it up.
Right.
And so what originally is just a talk, they decide, okay, well, you're going to come with us. Now, mind you, he's on like a
he's in a prison.
He's like a prison camp, like mining and like taking apart something.
Working in a junkyard salvaging.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the security droid there is basically like, prisoner XXY, you have to come with me now. It's like, what? What is it? If you don't come with me now, I'm going to shock you.
So I'm going to point out something that maybe guys don't notice, but I certainly do.
Okay.
And that's that you have a number of very attractive women, well-built, attractive women.
Mm-hmm. And
there's absolutely no hint of sexism in really anything. You have Mayhew, who's depicted as being a very sort of rough around the edges. I say things come out of my mouth without editing, kind of guy.
Mm-hmm.
And here's Cara Dune in front of him, and she's going to take him with her, and there's not a single sexual innuendo.
Wow, I didn't think about that at all. And now that you mention it, and again,
there's not a single "I'll go with you anywhere."
Yeah.
There's not yeah.
Not a whistle, not a cat call.
And she's a beautiful woman.
Oh, very much. And again, the TV series probably doesn't do her justice in some cases. It'll rough her up a little bit. Again, she's a very pretty woman.
Well, and she's wearing all that armor, and you never see her in anything other than the armor. But
the armor very accents her.
It shows her figure, but still, I mean, the same is true of Ming-Na.
Yeah.
She's a beautiful woman, but here very glammed down. Still beautiful.
Still very beautiful, yeah. And again, not a hint of wowzers.
Yeah. There's no... So, I mean, I really appreciate this. I noticed it in season 1. I noticed it more so in season 2. Because I think I've probably already sort of made mental note of, wow, that's interesting. Things that we would consider quite normal to include, if you were depicting this in our day and age, you get some sort of comment like that.
Yeah.
But in this particular series, really, sexism is kind of neutralized.
Very neutralized.
And you don't get... You have this rough guy who's in prison and in a salvage yard with a bunch of droids, and he's confronted with a beautiful woman who wants to take him with her, and there's not a single sexual innuendo. And I appreciate that. I'm sure it's not something that most men would notice, but I think women would.
Yeah, again, and until you mentioned it, I hadn't thought about it. And again, you did bring this up last week as well, where it's women are very much just women. They're not females. They're not gendered identity. Everyone's on a very equal playing field at the end of the day. And the only difference is just the only real major difference. Yeah, again, and the only real major difference is being oh, you're a girl. Ooh, big deal.
It's totally
equalizing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there is.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, and I think this is the version of the future that very much George Lucas had in mind. And I think even the current producers really do have in mind. I believe her name is Kathleen Kennedy. She's the current head of LucasArts. She was the one. She was a big champion of other films and stuff like that beforehand. And so again, I mean, a woman kind of leading it here does not surprise me in that this might be what's happening in the series. But even if that's the case here, I don't care who's directing it or who's pointing that compass ending today. I think it's a good direction to go to at the end of the day, and I don't care.
It's just a nice depiction of the future. It sets an expectation.
Yeah,
and I appreciate that. I just thought I'd point it out.
Oh yeah, and again, it's a very nice, level, even playing field for everybody.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Women in roles of authority aren't the least bit
common.
Well, they're not uncommon.
True. Absolutely.
And women being able to be cruel as well, because you see that in the previous episode.
Yeah.
You know, so women on both sides of it.
Oh, very much so. So we get to a point here where they're basically just okay, well, we're going to infiltrate this, Imperial facility that will have access to wherever Moff Gideon is.
Right.
And
we need to find the closest terminal.
Yes. So in order to get into the thing here, they're at this what is a mining planet, and they basically
People
knock
think
out
it's
some.
abandoned, but it's not.
Oh no! It's this one's very active.
Oh, this one's very active.
Yeah, this one they very well
other
admit
one,
that it's
okay.
very active with Imperial.
And what they're mining is very volatile.
Yes, to the point where like if it gets too hot, like
you travel too fast.
Travel too fast, you get
It'll
too
blow
bumpy, it'll blow up essentially.
It's not stable.
And then this particular location here, like they've lost a lot of trucks to stuff like this here.
Well, they've got pirates.
Oh yes, there's pirates coming after them, and to the point,
and very piratey.
So, but what happens even before that here is that they basically figure out like, okay, we're going to go take over. The best way for us to get in there is to sneak in to look like stormtroopers or this planet's variation on stormtroopers, because these are all like green armor. They don't look like stormtrooper armor.
Well, yeah, they look a little bit different. Even the masks are shaped a little bit differently.
And these are like truck driver troopers, I guess. That's the best way to put it.
Yeah, well, these are transport troopers.
Yeah. And in order to do that here, like, it's basically the notion of like the Mandalorian has got to change out of his own armor into somebody else's armor. And this is where you get this great.
I mean, they knock off two guys.
Yeah, they knock off two guys
and take over their load, their truck, and he changes in a corner.
Mm-hmm.
A little super vanish.
So nobody can see his face.
So nobody can see him. So nobody can see him. He's still in a helmet, and nobody's seen him. And he and Mayhew have a very interesting attempt at a conversation.
I love this conversation.
Mayhew's trying so hard
to just antagonize him,
to antagonize him. I've actually found the conversation very interesting because basically Mayhew's whole argument is, I'm not taking sides. Both sides are bad.
Yeah.
No one asked me if I wanted to live under the
Republic or the Imperials.
Or the Imperials. And really, do you think, as they're driving through this one village, do you think these people care? To them, it's just a different person telling them what to do. Mm-hmm. It's actually, I thought,
somewhat enlightening. Very politically charged sort of commentary without calling out to question either side at the end of the day.
Yeah, he's
very a Western American production at the end of the day.
Yeah, but he's very much saying, whichever side doesn't really matter to them. They just know that they don't get to live on their land the way they want to. People are poking holes in it and exploiting it and exploiting them. Mm-hmm. And to them, I don't think it really matters who the exploiter is. I really appreciated the conversation.
I like it too, and again, it's also a bit of poking the bear as well. I mean,
he's trying to get some sort of response out of him, and the Mandalorian remains very, very
stoic.
Yeah, stoic's the right word.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's the way I would go with it. Stoic and enigmatic about it.
Well, and he talks to him about wearing the helmet all the time too. Mm-hmm. Like, it's much more comfortable with the helmet off. Because he took it. I don't know how you see out of this thing. It's
very hard vision.
I don't know why you do this. And the Mandalorian makes it clear the helmet's not coming off.
The helmet doesn't come off. That's the way. It's like, whatever.
Yeah.
So eventually, like, after this prolonged sort of fight with pirates that are trying to get onto their load, they actually make it to the Imperial stronghold here, and they're cheered like champions.
Well, okay, so the pirates are really, they're on the standard sort of desert vehicle that just sort of hovers, the hovercraft thing.
Yep.
They're standing on it, riding it like it's like an oversized skateboard that 6 people can fit on.
Like a small boat skiff or something.
And they're hopping onto the transport,
trying to blow it up.
And for what end? Because it didn't really look like they were trying to steal anything. It looked like they were just
blowing it up to
marauders.
Yeah.
So but the way it's played is very much like the old Western scenes that you'd see on top of a train.
Oh yeah, very much.
Like you'd gallop your horse alongside and then hop onto the train and get on top and battle with whoever else was on top of the train.
Yeah,
it's very much
a Western.
Yeah, so it's very much that scene. Very well done. I was impressed with it.
A lot of fun in it too.
Yeah.
Trying to like hold on and shoot stuff, and like, no, it's out of. It's like, keep it steady. It's like, or like, stop bumping around up there.
Yeah, or go faster. Well, if I go faster, it's going to blow up. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of very sort of campy
tension, kind of going back and forth throughout it.
Yeah.
Again, a lot of fun.
Well done. Yeah.
So then they get to the Imperial stronghold, and the idea here is basically that they're going to get the information, they're going to get to the roof, and then they're going to get out.
Yep.
Are they going to
So they're gonna get Mayhew to a terminal. There's probably a terminal in the officer's mess.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be Mayhew because it requires face recognition.
Yes.
It requires a facial scan in order to turn it on.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what isn't anyway?
Yeah. So what was again? They
going to
come
go into what isn't explained here, which doesn't make sense to me at all. Is if it's doing face scanning, then it would recognize that Mayhew was no longer an Imperial trooper.
Potentially, yeah. Again, I mean, I'm not.
It doesn't do that.
Well, I mean, like you again, keep in mind that these might be old records of this particular time, and again, I mean, like.
Okay.
Not
buying that, but okay.
I don't know. There's an HR that's really present that there was before.
Oh, okay.
That's going to be my logic here.
Because we're between official empires.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're between governments here, and like if this person actually is existing here, like God forbid, and again, keep in mind like old codes get, even the one for, and when we go back to like Return of the Jedi as an example, the code that they used to get past the shields to get onto Endor, they were very much like, it's an older code, but it matches.
Well, okay, so they come into this thing, and there are like 5 transports out there, and we've seen 3 blow up.
Mm-hmm.
So when these guys come in, they're cheered.
Oh yeah, they're heroes.
Like they're heroes. People are saluting them as they drive in, and it's a big thing. So Mayhew needs to make his way
to this officer mess,
so he can
get onto the terminal. And who is there? It's a guy that
he served under,
and he wants to get those boys a drink.
Well, it's a guy. Well, okay, there are a couple things that happened before that, though. Okay, so it's a guy that he served under, and so he doesn't feel like he could go in there and use the terminal because this guy, he's afraid this guy
make him out.
Might recognize him. So eventually, the Mandalorian says, "Okay, I'll go," and he says, "You can't go because it does face recognition software."
Yeah.
He says, "No, I'll go." So he goes, and he gets in front of the terminal. And he puts the little wand in, and the terminal again won't recognize him because he's got a helmet on. So he takes his helmet off, and it's the first time we see him.
Oh, okay, so the Mandalorian does.
The Mandalorian does.
Yes, the Mandalorian himself takes off his helmet willingly. Now, again, like, we saw him without his helmet on in Season 1, but this is like the first time he's actually...
When did we see him without his helmet on in Season 1?
When the robot tries to heal him.
Oh, that's true.
When IG-11 takes it off, and he's like, no living person has ever seen my face. Like,
and I'm not living. That's right.
All right.
Okay.
So yeah, but again, he takes off his mask. Now, you even saw a little bit of a hint of his face earlier in the season because he gives a little bit of something to Grogu, and then he kind of lifts up his mask a little bit and kind of chews at it as well, to put it in his mouth. But again, like that's as most as you've ever seen him really like eat at all either. So. Yeah. But the fact that he takes off his helmet here at the end of the day is like,
and you see the full thing,
is
face.
a big deal for him because again, like because ever since like episode 3, like he's been having, it feels like he's been having conflicting doubts about the Mandalorian way at the end of the day here.
Well, and you really see that when he's with Bo-Katan.
Mm-hmm. Like he's
and
very.
She, you're Mandalorians, but you're not wearing your mask, and he's sincerely surprised by that.
And he's actually offended by that as well.
Yeah.
He's not only he's got very sincere beliefs. He's like more like, whoa.
That's not the way.
What are you doing here? You put your mask back on. You're not supposed to take your mask off. What the hell are you doing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, and when she explains, no, that's the we know we are aware. So you're part of that old sect.
Yeah, you're part of those old fogey kind of style.
Yeah.
But when we get to here, like he's taking off his mask, I think he's kind of like. I imagine the wheels in his head are like, I can't take off my helmet, but like I got to do this for the kid, and so he does it for the kid. I think at the end of the day,
you get the sense he's so desperate to find the child,
mm-hmm.
and now it's not just because it's a quest; it's because he's truly attached to
the
child. So he does that, and he's able to get the information he wants. But as he's pulling the the thing out. There's an officer talking to him, and he's not responding.
Yeah.
So Mayhew rushes in, and this is the exact same officer that Mayhew was afraid would recognize him.
Yes.
So Mayhew rushing in
gives him like some sort of like unit number or something that would make sense.
And he'd gotten hit by, he'd been near a blaster, and now he can't hear well.
Yeah, he's having trouble hearing right now. Like he got, on our way here, like we got an explosion that happened here. It's like, I can't hear.
Oh, you're the transport that just came in. Let me buy you a drink.
I gotta buy you heroes a drink.
Yeah.
And so they're having this very kind of tense back and forth during this conversation here.
Well, Mayhew can't, because he does speak without editing.
Oh yeah, no, he's just
and he
going.
has one of those conversations, and he says, "I know who you are. I served under you at this
particular point,
and lots of people, that was a rough day, and the entire platoon, almost the entire platoon, died.
Mm-hmm. But they also killed like all these other people.
But they were heroes."
Mm-hmm.
And he says, "Well, and he goes into, do you think they would have chosen to be heroes when they have been better alive?" And he goes after this officer over the decisions he's made that's cost lives.
Mm-hmm.
And all the people he knew who died. And the villagers, the innocent villagers who died as well. And again, it's a commentary on war. It's an interesting conversation to have.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, at some point, the officer,
starts putting the pieces together.
And Mayhew shoots him under the table.
Oh no! I thought he pulled the right in front of him.
So it's very much a Western thing in a bar.
Oh yeah.
It's very much a Western thing in a bar, and he shoots him, and now they've got to hightail it out of there.
No, because mind you, there's not just the one. It's not. It's just like a small break. This is like a medium-sized break room sort of thing.
And there are
other people in here.
In there, so they're not alone.
Other officers and transport troopers, I guess, is the best way to describe them.
So suddenly they're shooting their way out of there,
mm-hmm.
and out of the hangar altogether.
Now, mind you, the Mandalorian's got his helmet back on at this point once the shooting starts, because he's left it on in the interim.
But he's had the conversation with this officer with the helmet off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which was for him was like, gotta put the helmet back on.
It's got to feel so abnormal. I felt sorry for him.
The wind in my hair, weird.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
By the way, one of the questions I've had this entire time is, how does he see a barber?
Yeah.
Because he's not like shaved. His head's not shaved.
And he's maybe just got a little bit of stubble, so like clearly he's shaven or like got a razor or something.
Well, but that he could do himself. But what about the haircut? The hair is close cropped, but it's not shaved. I'm just saying, it occurs to me that that's an issue.
I don't disagree, and I'm trying to think of a logical rationale for it. But
Don't
you're
have
not
to.
wrong.
Don't have
You're not
to.
wrong. You're not wrong.
Don't have to. So they get rescued because there was a plan all the way along,
mm-hmm.
in which the girls would shoot. And I shoot the girls. That's so rude of me after making the comment that wasn't sexist. Cara and Fennec
mm-hmm.
are going to sniper
anybody that comes after them on the roof, while Boba Fett, drives in and basically picks them up off the roof.
And they have to leap off the roof onto the landing platform, the platform from the ship, and
mm-hmm.
off they go to find Episode 8.
Yay! Oh, actually, before then, they after the events here, he actually Mayfield actually grabs a rifle and shoots something that blows up the entire complex.
Yeah.
And at the end of it here, they're basically you know what? I'm pretty sure Mayfield died at some point here.
That's true.
Yeah,
okay, so
he's dead.
Cara Dune and the Mandalorian are standing there with
Mayfield.
He said, so now going. So Mayfield says, "Now go take me back." He's going to be honorable. Now go take me back.
Mm-hmm.
And she says, "I think he died here. I think he died in the explosion."
Oh yeah, definitely died in the explosion.
Yeah, and he's like, "So I can go." It isn't like he takes off and says, "Oh, I'm going."
He's very much
he's very hesitant. So
are you toying with me, or
yeah.
what's going on here?
So I really hope we get to see him again.
I think he'd be kind of cool in either in either story here at this point. I think it'd be kind of cool in either another. The other three series that are announced besides the Ashoka Tano one here again, and New Republic, which I think he'd be good in that one if he, well, like former Imperial guy that like a buddy cop with like a Republic person and an Imperial person kind of have to work together to help the New Republic. Be kind of a cool thing. He could appear again in Book of Boba Fett, which is going to be a Boba Fett series now, which was already talked about before the actual Mandalorian.
I just almost kind of want to see like a Lethal Weapon series with the Mandalorian and Mayhew.
Potentially a season 3 maybe, but not to episode 8.
Well, but we forgot one more thing.
Okay, one more.
It's very touching between the two of them. It's a conversation that takes place right after he shoots the guy, and he turns to the Mandalorian and says, "I had to."
Yeah.
And then he says, "I never saw you.
I don't know.
Mask never came off."
Yeah. And makes a point of getting a mask and putting it back on him too.
Yeah.
And again, like there's a mutual respect there at the end of the day.
He makes a point of telling the Mandalorian, "I never saw your face. Mask never came off."
Yeah.
Like, this is between me and you.
Yeah. I saw nothing.
And I really thought that was
a nice touching moment.
Yeah.
From a character that when we last saw him was very much sort of like this roguish outlaw that was very much kind of like, F you, I do it my own way. Ha ha ha.
He's still that way.
Yeah, he's still that way. Yeah.
And he is very unedited.
But like clearly he's got a moral compass, and at least he's like,
he's very moral. I mean, in both of the conversations that I really appreciated, the one between him and the officer, and the one when they were going through the village, and he's making the point about
war and like people here don't give two shits which side you're on. You're here, and they don't want you here.
Here, yeah.
So you said
they don't have a say in it.
So you said you had different opinions on this episode.
Okay, I actually would have thought. I wish they wouldn't have had him take his helmet off, because I thought it devalued a scene that's coming up in the next episode.
Okay.
I thought that the scene that's coming up in the next episode would have been more
fitting, or more
sentimental, more meaningful.
Okay.
If he had already willingly taken his helmet off. Okay. So that was, but then again, as I said, I appreciated the idea that Mayhew says, well, it didn't happen.
Yeah.
So I guess I view both ways.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
So then we get to episode 8, and keep in mind when we get to episode 8 here, like, and even before this, Boba Fett's actually cleaned up his armor, so it's got a nice new shiny paint job on it.
Yeah, it's looking better.
Back to its green and red look here, red and yellow look here. And they go to a random bar and they find the Night Owls, and they basically go to the Night Owl saying, "Hey, I need your help." Now, keep in mind, like, the Night Owls are making this big deal about, like, well, we're not helping you because you're a weird Mandalorian, and we're not going to work with him because he's not a Mandalorian. Right. In which, pointing to Boba Fett, and Boba Fett makes this distinct point of saying, "I never said I was a Mandalorian." Yeah. And by all accounts, like,
and they know he's a clone of his father.
Oh yeah. They're all. Who
was a foundling? Which doesn't that make him a Mandalorian? I had that question. Aren't foundlings Mandalorians?
Jango Fett would have been.
But the clone isn't.
The clone isn't. They think. And again, keep in mind that clones are kind of like an important sort of thing. It's like an X-Men being a mutant. Like, a clone? Ew, we don't want you.
It's like a fake Louis Vuitton bag.
There you go.
Okay.
Although, I mean, like, can you really tell the difference? But if you really look hard enough, yes, you can.
Yes, you can.
If you know Louis Vuitton, like, you're gonna be like, no, that's a knockoff. And I'm over here just like, guy on the street corner said it was real.
Yeah.
Again, we were in
Close
Japan.
enough.
Well, again, we were in Japan. They were selling those like left, right, and center, weren't they?
Well, when I was in Taiwan, your brother actually wanted me to buy one for his wife, which I did, and I actually did very carefully inspect it, because you look for the matching patterns on this. There's certain things you look for. Okay. It's a good knockoff. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So episode 8, they, in the in Boba Fett's ship here, they commandeer a.
Because remember, he doesn't have his own ship anymore.
No.
The Crest is gone.
The Crest is gone. So this ragtag team, including the Night Owls, all three of them, Boba Fett, Cara Dune, Fennec, and the Mandalorian here, they take over this Imperial transport ship. It's the same kind that Darth Vader rides around in. Same thing that the
you recognize this, that triangular kind of
ship, yeah. They get to, and eventually, like, the ship also happens to have the Doctor on it, oddly enough.
Yeah.
And the two pilots are basically like...
They board it.
They board it, and one of the pilots is like, like...
Giving up because...
One of the pilots has.
Yeah.
The other guy is basically like, goes and shoots the other pilot. It's like,
you
give him up. It's like, he's got the Doctor by handle here, and he's like... He looks at Cara Dune and he's like, you were from, it's like, your people killed all of my friends on the Death Star. Huh. And Cara Dune's like, huh, which one? Funny joke.
Yeah.
The first one. The one that took out Alderaan. And he's just like, oh yeah, really? Yeah. I was there when we killed your planet. Yeah. Those rebel scum.
Yeah.
Those rebel scums against the Empire. And Cara Dune, I think, is the one that takes him out, right?
Yeah. Yeah, she blasts him with a sniper shot in there.
Oh yeah, right in the face.
Yeah.
They get the Doctor and they're trying to figure out.
And at that point, he's holding the Doctor hostage in the standard. I got him around the neck and I'm pointing a gun at his head.
Yeah, like
you've seen that, like
you've seen that
Criminal Minds, but
billions of times. Yeah, and it's like, in the notion here as well, it's like, well, where are you going to go? We're not leaving.
Yeah, we're not leaving. Yeah, so.
So they take over the ship here. They got the Doctor, and they're trying to ask, still not 100% certain what the Doctor has or hasn't done with the kid at this point.
But he does tell them, this is where you really learn that they're collecting his blood, and they're going to try to clone him.
Yes. So this is that point here where you learn that.
Yeah.
I don't think they don't kill the Doctor here, do they? I forget.
They do not kill the Doctor.
They don't kill the Doctor here. But they get onto this Imperial ship. And they just...
And the Doctor's kind of helping him.
Oh, yeah.
He's telling him where to find things, and...
Because he's more concerned. He's not even concerned about the Empire at the end of the day here. He just wants the child.
He wants to do the science.
Yeah, he just wants the science.
But he has no real affection for the child. He wants the science.
Yeah.
It's an interesting juxtaposition.
So the big thing that he tells them is that you need to get to the Dark Troopers before they get powered up. Because if you don't get to the Dark Troopers before they power up, when they power up, there's no stopping them.
And where are the Dark Troopers? This becomes important.
Yes, they're in this...
Because this goes back to something that happens in season 1.
Oh?
Yes, it does. Oh, no, not until we get there. Not until we get there. But there's something that happens in season 1 that gets reenacted with the Dark Troopers in this episode.
Okay. So they decide to split up. So the Mandalorian's going to go deal with the Dark Troopers while everyone else creates a big enough diversion so that all the Stormtroopers are going after them.
Right.
While they take over the ship. Because again, the Night Owls would very much love to have this ship.
So they have, at this point, how many people? Because I think this is... How many Stormtroopers are there on the ship?
Dozens and dozens.
And how many people do they have with them?
6.
Yeah. They're outnumbered like how many to what?
Oh, there's 7 of them if you include the Mandalorian.
I mean, the Stormtroopers are just lousy shots.
Oh, super lousy shots.
And such wimps because they're getting tossed all over the place.
Mm-hmm. Just nailed left, right, and center.
Yeah.
And now, so Boba Fett's attacked the ship here, and he's with his own ship here, and he's been attacking, and he like jets off as like this other ship kind of like he was like trying to shoot down the Imperial ship, and he just kind of like darts off. The Imperial ship gets in there, and they're like, "Oh, you saved us! Thank goodness!" Do 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 do.
Yeah.
And so they split up. So it's Cara Dune, Fennec, the 3 Night Owls, and then the Mandalorian is on his own. He goes to he finds the place where they're at, but at this point here they're already getting started up.
They're being activated, and he actually to do what eventually happens, he does need them activated, but he needs them stuck in that room.
Yes. So he's trying to seal the door here and open up the vacuum to space to let them out. So they go into space and they can't fully activate. They're just stuck in a...
But okay, and where does that happen with stormtroopers in season 1? They're on the ship, and they get the stormtroopers. They trick the stormtroopers into closing all the doors except for...
I apologize.
The freight door, and he releases all the stormtroopers off the back of the ship.
Oh.
Remember that?
Yes, now I remember that.
I assume that's where the idea came from.
Possibly,
That's because they board and they and the
Are you talking about episode 3 with another Night Owls? Because that's when they do that, don't they? 'Cause I don't remember them on a ship with stormtroopers in season 1 at all.
No, this isn't. This isn't season 1, and they release all the stormtroopers. I'm pretty sure it's season 1. Maybe it's season 2. I'll have to go back and look. They literally release because the guy who's in the cockpit is talking to them, and he says, "Well, where are they?" Well, we've closed all the doors.
Season 2, episode 3.
Oh, is that when that is?
Yeah, because this is when the Night Owls are with the Mandalorian and they're breaking into the ship.
Okay, and they release they jettison all the stormtroopers.
Yep. Because
okay.
At one point.
Then I'm mistaken. It's not season 1, but they reenact something that.
Yeah, they react that there. Although one of the Dark Troopers
gets through the door.
So he gets through the door, and he's just pounding away at the Mandalorian. He's pretty
amazing. But the Beskar will take anything.
Oh, that helmet's doing fine work.
He's pissing the poor Dark Trooper off.
Oh yeah, he's trying to shoot at him. He's trying to get the Beskar lance through him at certain points. Like,
well, but he just the Dark Trooper just keeps pounding on the helmet and nothing's happening. And he's getting really frustrated that nothing's happening.
Absolutely, and again, like he's just like. Punch helmet.
You can
helmet. It's
see the robot getting frustrated.
And it's literally going through the wall behind him. Like every single time he punches him, the helmet stays perfectly intact, but it's going further and further into the wall behind them.
Yeah.
And you're just like...
Whoa.
And so eventually, like, after some work, the Mandalorian gets rid of this Dark Trooper.
He stabs him straight
through the head with the Beskar. So that Beskar doing its work... but not before. Now, keep in mind, in the earlier portion of the episode here, or even episode 6 here, Moff Gideon has actually got Grogu in like a prison cell.
He's got him with handcuffs,
trying to get the blood out of him, and he actually pulls out the Dark Saber at one point.
Well, he actually leaves some stormtroopers with him and uses that. And Grogu is so angry that he's like beating up the stormtroopers without even touching them. Mm-hmm. He's just manipulating them around the room and tossing them in like they're little rag dolls.
Oh yeah.
And he's exhausted himself, and that's when they're able to put the handcuffs on him.
Yeah.
They're able to like hit him with something that puts him to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
He says because Gideon says, "Aren't you tired?"
Yeah. And they hit him with like a little stun ray or something.
And they put him to sleep, and then they put the handcuffs on him.
And then Moff Gideon's kind of teasing at him with the Dark Saber, essentially.
Yeah.
It's like, have you seen one of these before? Shiny, isn't it?
Yeah.
But then Moff Gideon, who is there on the ship as well, he's kind of got like an armor sort of thing going on with him now.
And Bo-Katan says, he is mine.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever you want with anybody else, but he is mine.
Yes. So she makes a big point about saying, like, you can't, don't deal with him. He is mine. Don't you dare touch him.
Don't touch him. He's mine. Nobody else goes after him. He's mine.
But the Mandalorian, unfortunately, gets to him first. And
brings him to
the heel with his Beskar lance.
Yeah.
And again knocks the Dark Saber out of his hands and basically, captures him.
And he has the Dark Saber.
Mm-hmm. Now the Mandalorian has the Dark Saber. And so now the Night Owls, Cara Dune and Fennec have just been kind of like working their way through the ship here. Like again, like Cara Dune's got this like heavy repeater sort of blaster that she's just like mowing stormtroopers down with. It's hilarious and funny just watching them go through this thing here. They get to the bridge. They've now taken over the ship here. And the Mandalorian comes in and he's got he's got Moff Gideon here and tosses him in front of Bo-Katan. He's like, here you go. This is yours. Did you beat him up? Did you beat him before? And it's like, yeah, you got this saber thingy.
Here, this is the weapon you wanted.
Yeah, and she's just like, oh, I wish you hadn't done that.
He was supposed to be mine.
He was supposed to be mine. And he's like, okay, well, have the,
Here he is.
Here he is. He's like, no. The reason I needed him to beat him was to get that, which was the Dark Saber.
But Gideon's actually the one who explains it, because he's laughing.
He's giddy with kind of like...
Gideon is giddy.
Yeah.
He's laughing because he understands that and what this reminded me was Harry Potter and wands.
Yes.
Okay? So the lightsaber will only answer to the person who defeats the last owner of it.
Well,
the person who takes it off of him.
Yeah, but the notion there being, it's not even so much the lightsaber does that at all. It's just that even if like it never left that room here, like Bo-Katan would know the fact that she didn't win the saber, and so she's not. So she would.
Well, whoever owns the lightsaber is the ruler of Mandalore,
and you can only beat that person. You can only gain the control of the Dark Saber through actual combat, and so Bo-Katan knows this. And she is the previous owner of the Dark Saber and knows...
The Mandalorian can't give it to her and have it mean anything.
Absolutely. So now they're in like this,
they would have to do battle.
Yeah, they would have to fight one another here and potentially lose life. And Mandalorian's like, I don't give two shits. Just have it. I don't want it.
Just take it. I don't want it. That's not my...
It's not my thing. I'm not even...
Not my quest.
Like my quest is, was to save the child. And we saved the child, so yay.
Yeah.
But Moff Gideon's still kind of laughing here as well, because all those Dark Troopers they thought they got rid of
are now flying back.
Their jetpacks. They're now with the ship again.
So they're flying back through the trade hole that what do you call that?
The portholes in the loading dock doors and stuff. Yeah, like
they're just flying back in,
and they're just like all over the place like rats. Like they're everywhere now, and meanwhile like they're all like programmed, and like Moff Gideon's is like, you guys are so screwed. You guys are never leaving this place ever again. And like they start,
he's menacing in a weird way. It's not an evil menace.
It's more like
it's a joyful menace. I don't know how to describe it.
It's like the nerds getting revenge kind of menace.
It is. He is taking such glee
in the fact that like they're all about to die by these Dark Troopers that are just going to annihilate them. In theory. Oh, but in fact, probably true. I mean, like, again, the Mandalorian himself had a problem just taking down one of them.
And what has come back is like 20 of them or so, maybe more.
Oh, no, there's got to be like 40 or 50 of them, I want to say. At least. Yeah. There's a lot of them.
It's pretty amazing.
So it's like its own battalion.
A question for you.
Yes.
So they created these, obviously, just for the Mandalorian. We don't ever see them.
Yes and no. So the Dark Troopers have actually been a recurring menacing bad guy in various other Star Wars-esque video games. Most notably in the Jedi Knights series, which shows a guy named Kyle Katarn, I think his name is, who was a former Imperial soldier who becomes disillusioned and ends up becoming a Jedi.
So like Finn.
Kind of like I don't know. He kind of like Finn, yeah, but he actually becomes a Jedi with trained by Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, we're not sure with Finn.
Yeah, we're not sure with Finn yet. I'd like to think so, but we're not sure.
I would love to see another Black Jedi.
I would love to see another Black Jedi.
Yeah.
Especially one with a purple lightsaber that curses a lot.
Yeah.
Samuel L. Jackson is a great Jedi.
Yeah.
But the video game series does have Dark Troopers in it, which are not quite as skeletal looking as these guys were. They're a little bit more put together, but again, like, super dangerous black stormtroopers, essentially, at the end of the day here, that are super powerful and really tough to kill. So they are in other media, mostly notable the video game series.
It just seems like you have this perfect fighting creature,
mm-hmm.
and yet it doesn't appear at A New Hope or in future.
I want to kind of say that they were built after the fact, but again, I mean, keep in mind that even that originally, like, the Imperials didn't want to have militaristic droids. Militaristic droids were outlawed in the formation of the Empire.
Because you could potentially
make your own army to rise up against them.
Yeah.
Which is why they only allowed stormtroopers here. So it wouldn't be unusual for the First Order to keep with that doctrine, being that they're super imperialistic at the end of the day, potentially.
Okay. All right. No, that's enough of an explanation for you.
My rational logic.
Yeah, but it just bothered me that you would have this perfect fighting
thing and not utilize it
and then
properly.
not utilize it.
Mm-hmm. No, agreed.
Except that now, because the next thing that happens is that you see an X-wing fighter coming.
It doesn't even, and again, like, you try, it's
you
like
see it.
It just comes in, and like they're trying to.
You see it coming in.
You see it coming in, and the people that are on the bridge are trying to reach out to it here, like, attention, Republic fighter, are you here to help us? Like that, nothing happens,
and nothing's said, and we don't know who or what it is. We don't know who or what it is.
And
who is it? We don't know. We watch it. It's a tremendous Jedi, all in like a black cape,
and a green lightsaber,
big green lightsaber.
Just
mowing
these
through.
things. Yeah. Just like they're not even like it's not even like a struggle.
This episode's what, 45 minutes?
I think this one is 45 minutes. Yeah.
Okay, and at least 20 or 25 of it is fight scenes.
Yeah.
At least.
And this last one here is again just like is beautiful shot of just like 2-3 minutes of just this,
and mostly you're seeing it through
camera footage
that would be security cameras,
and occasionally you get like some in-person stuff, but it's mostly from security footage which is again black and white and somewhat grainy.
Yep.
As you would.
Yep. Because that hasn't come a long way since
again, still big buttons.
Yeah. Still big buttons.
No keyboards.
Because big buttons photograph better, yeah. Yeah,
big buttons photograph better, and again, I mean, like, this is fantasy, sci-fi fantasy.
Yeah. It's matinee. It's Saturday matinee.
Yeah. And so again, like, there's this hallway that leads to the bridge, and there's got to be like what, a dozen of them in there, these dark troopers.
Yeah.
And this Jedi just kind of walks through there as if like nothing at all, and they're just like,
this is just a Saturday walk in the park.
It's just like, slightly move out of the way, dodge down a little bit, sword swipe, take this one out. Force throw this thing over here, force crush this thing.
Yeah. He could lift them up and move them.
And just annihilate them. It's as if like they weren't even there.
It's pretty incredible.
And then
what a mighty Jedi.
Oof.
Who could that be?
And then when it gets into the room there, they're all just kind of like, what is this thing after? What is this thing even? Nobody, because again, nobody's ever seen it as Jedi at all. Gideon's just kind of like wide-eyed at this point. He's just like dumbfounded.
He is.
And in walks in a much younger than what he would appear to be looking at this age, Mark Hamill as Luke Skywalker.
Yeah.
And he has come for the child.
He's come for the child. He has come for the child, and he seems to know the child.
Mm-hmm. Because he reached out to him with the Force.
Has he ever met the child before? I wasn't clear on that. He has not ever been.
He's never met the child before. But again, he reached out to him through the Force.
He reached out to him through the Force when he was on the rock.
Mm-hmm. On Tython.
Like Python with the T.
Yes.
And they seem to be communicating. He feels his thoughts, even though Grogu never does speak English. And here's my thing: Yoda speaks English.
Yes, Yoda's also like 700 years old.
Yeah, but you would think the kid's 50 years old. The kid could have learned a second language.
I think if the kid was not talking to begin with, it would be like he was still in a bassinet, for all extensive purposes.
But he's been trained already.
He's been trained. He's been partly trained. He never finished his training.
He never finished training.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so, the Mandalorian says.
Are you a Jedi?
well, we know he's a Jedi.
No, we don't actually. Again, nobody's seen a Jedi in like by this point here, like nearly 30 years. None of these people
He's looking pretty good for 50.
So again, like at this point here, like Luke Skywalker would have been 28, 29 years old.
Okay.
You have to remember that this is...
We're like 5 years after the movie 7.
Yeah, so we're in 9 ABY, which is 9 years after the Battle of Yavin, and Luke Skywalker would have been born 19 BBY, so 19 years before the Battle of Yavin.
Oh.
So he would have been like 28, 29 years old, give or take.
Okay, he does look that. Okay,
yeah,
so are you a Jedi? Yes, I'm a Jedi.
Mm-hmm. I've come for the child.
And he places the child on the ground
to go to Luke at the end of the day.
To go to Luke, and Grogu doesn't go.
No, doesn't want to go.
Doesn't want to go, and the Mandalorian, tells him something like, "You don't need to be afraid," and Luke says he wants your permission.
Yeah.
He's attached to you. He wants your permission, and you see several people who tell him he's attached to you.
Oh yeah.
Even Gideon says he's attached to you. I don't care. I got what I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
I got his blood. I got what I needed.
Yep.
I no longer care. Take him.
Yeah. Very much attached to him here, and
that scene is like 10 minutes before this.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And at this point here, like, is it at this point he takes off his helmet?
Well,
he reaches into his. I think he takes off his helmet. He reaches into his pouch. He's still got the ball,
right?
And he gives it to Grogu. It's like, here, it's okay. You should go with him.
Yeah. Finish your training. But he actually has that conversation with his helmet still on, and then he's holding Grogu and looking at him straight in the eyes with the helmet still on, and Grogu touches the helmet. Mm-hmm. And that's when he takes off the helmet and Grogu touches his face.
Yes.
And I think that scene would have been more meaningful if you hadn't seen his face in the previous episode and he hadn't willingly taken off his helmet in the previous episode. Because up till now, he's never willingly taken off his helmet.
True. Yeah, I can see that.
So that's my comment. But it's one of those I'm trying not to cry. I didn't cry. Did you cry? Sort of scenes. Because Grogu does touch his face and then goes.
And so Luke Skywalker comes over. Grogu looks over to Luke Skywalker and is like, "Okay, let's do this." And Luke Skywalker picks the kid. R2-D2 is like bumbles in behind him.
Well, actually, he's on the ground. R2-D2 rolls up, and they sort of communicate weirdly.
Yeah, they have this like look with each other.
Yeah.
Mind you, like R2-D2's seen one of these things before and doesn't like them.
That's true, because he saw Yoda. Yeah,
and Yoda didn't play with him so nicely.
Yeah.
And then so they leave, and the final real shots of it.
He didn't really want to go to Dagobah, remember?
No. But again, the real final shots here are of Luke Skywalker, Grogu, and R2-D2 going down an Imperial tomb, presumably back to the X-Wing.
Right.
And the last bit of shots here are Pedro Pascal looking really tall in this armor that's kind of like hovering over everybody else, basically, just like towering over them.
But the helmet's still off.
But the helmet's off.
But his back's still to everybody, so I'm not clear who's seen his face.
True. Yeah. So again, they may have not seen him in here at this point, but it leaves it in a very ambiguous point of view at this point, because
to me it feels very final, because so.
It feels final in the sense that this portion of the story with Grogu and the child
he does tell Grogu, "I will see you again." Mm-hmm.
I will see you again in the future.
Yeah. He very distinctly tells him, "I will see you again."
Mm-hmm. And
so it leaves that open. But the quest is over. He's delivered Grogu to Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, that portion of the story is absolutely over now. If you see him again, is that next seasons later, assumingly, depending on how many more of this they want to keep making at this point. But it's done such a phenomenal job. It is somewhat curious now at this point.
Well, they say there's going to be a season 3, but they haven't said what season 3 is about. They've now said that Gina Carano will not be on it. But
yeah, and it's in pre-production right now, not post-production, but pre-production.
Oh, so it hasn't even been filmed.
No, and nothing in it at this point.
Because I'd heard it was going to come out in December.
If it was, they would have probably started filming now, so they'd have enough time to get through the CG.
There are a lot of CG in this stuff.
Mm-hmm. Very much so. And again, that's one of the things here where, like, potentially they could be starting on it here soon. But as far as I know right now, as of recording this right now, nothing has been. It's still in pre-production here. Pedro Pascal himself has signed on to star in a HBO version of The Last of Us, which was a video game series that came out here back in PlayStation 4, early PlayStation 4, which was a big hit. So he signed on to play Joel, which is the parent of I don't know what his name is now. Not Ellen Page, it was like Ian.
Oh, okay. I know who you mean.
Yeah, so I forget what his name is now, or what he would prefer to go by, or they would prefer to go by. I'd be curious if that person continued that role there. I kind of doubt it, but like maybe, because again, like that was literally all the mocap and the facial stuff was based off of Ellen Page at the time for that particular character.
Okay.
Or not. Maybe not Ellen Page, but kind of a similar kind of look, I think.
Okay.
So Pedro Pascal is signed on to do that. We don't know when the filming for that will commence or when that will happen. We don't know what the status of this is due to all the kerfluffle here. It could very well be that
this alters the storyline.
That either this alters the storyline, or so much as that, like, you know, maybe they say the Mandalorian has been on the run for a while, or they pick up the story sometime later.
We don't know what happens with Gideon Moff.
Nope.
He's still alive?
He's still alive.
We don't know what happens with
Bo-Katan and the Dark Saber element here. Again, like there's...
Or Boba Fett?
Or Boba Fett. Well, actually, Boba Fett, we know what does happen.
Okay.
So the very end of the Mandalorian is him walking into Jabba the Hutt's old palace.
Yeah. Now,
the original kind of like Vizier, kind of like guy with like the tentacles around his neck from his head.
Yeah.
The male version of a Twi'lek, I think, is what they're called, potentially. Or maybe not. I'm not 100% certain on that. He's been apparently running Jabba the Hutt's operation here for the last 5 years since Jabba's death. Boba Fett just kind of walks in, you know, is like, Boba Fett, it's so nice to see you again.
Yeah.
How are you doing? It's Jabba's not here at the moment. I think you know why. You know, you should account for what happened. And Boba Fett just shoots him and proceeds to sit where Jabba the Hutt used to sit at, with the teaser now for the Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah.
Which presumably is going to tell the story of what happens at this point going forward of what Boba Fett does. Because clearly he's not working with the Mandalorian anymore. He's moved on from that.
Yeah.
So, but again, season 3 very much up in the air. Don't know when that's going to take place at this point here.
What happens to Fennec?
She's with Boba Fett as well.
Okay.
Keep in mind, like Ming-Na here has been in Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. for the last 7 years as well.
Yeah.
So I
really like her.
Yeah. Again, she's found herself a nice little niche to be in here at this point. Like she's in a lot of like cool TV shows. She gets to play cool characters. You know, very much in demand for an Asian actress here at the end of the day, which is awesome, I think.
Well, and the other thing is she's actually, I believe, American born.
She's American born, but again, of Asian descent. But she has elected, rather than being Melissa or Karen or something like that, to keep her Japanese or her Chinese name.
And I've known women who have come from China, and upon arriving in the United States, bought a baby book and changed their names because they felt like they were unemployable.
Yeah.
Using their Chinese names. So I think it's kind of neat that she's kept Ming-Na.
Yeah. And I've met a lot of people at work too where they have preferred to go by an American or Western name versus their own actual name at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So I know a guy here who's um, as Akbar Jahalini or something, but,
Uh-huh.
he would prefer to go by AJ.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
which, I don't know if it's too much of a difference there, but again, I think it makes more sense maybe.
Oh, I remember having conversations with somebody who used to work for me who said, "Oh yeah, no, she got here because her husband was working on a green card and she wanted to be working, and she was an accountant, and she found herself unemployable with her Chinese name. She spoke good English, but I mean it was heavily accented, and her name was Melinda. I said, "How'd you end up with Melinda?" "I bought a baby book,
Okay.
baby names, and picked it out of that."
Okay.
And I knew, and subsequently, then it became one of my favorite questions to ask,
Mm-hmm.
and people had done the same thing.
Okay. Now we just go on the internet and look at baby names.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what did you think of The Mandalorian?
I enjoyed it. I'm going to say this is and this may be unpopular. I wish it spent more time exploring, because there are some very interesting characters. Some very, very interesting characters. I'd like to know more about the lady mechanic, as an
Okay.
example. I wish it spent more time developing the relationships between the characters. There are some really fun, nice relationships between characters.
Mm-hmm.
And less time in battle. It seems to me like nearly half of every episode is just shooting stuff,
Yeah.
or fighting stuff, or stabbing stuff, or
But you kind of went into that with a Western, too.
yeah. I mean, it has to do with the genre that is very definitely emulating.
Yeah. I mean, I look forward to these characters getting reprising roles in either Book of Boba Fett, Ahsoka, or
Ahsoka, see, I find her very interesting, because when you get into that battle, she clearly is not what you thought she was.
nope. And again, I mean, it's a very interesting character as well that they've, again, been working on for the last 14 years, really, when you think about it here, of trying to keep her relevant into the Star Wars continuity and storylines, especially after Disney purchased it here back in the 2010s here, because again, I mean, like, it very much was a character where they were like, okay, well, she's just going to be in Clone Wars, and then that's it. We don't care about this character afterwards, like, and then she
But
came. Fans did, and again, she came back in Rebels, which was a really big thing here. And then when they did the quote-unquote final season, the 7th season of Clone Wars here, she came back in that as well for the final episodes. So clearly she was a very fan-favorite character, and that they've been keeping her in the forefront of their minds as far as other characters to keep working on. And the fact that they're going to make a TV show around her, not too dissimilar to The Mandalorian here, is going to be really interesting. I'm kind of curious to see what her story is. And now, with Cario being removed out of future projects here, it's left to be determined whether the New Republic will actually have either a new cast, or if it'll be canceled entirely, because again, this was meant to be a vehicle for her character.
Yeah.
And now that that's not going to happen anymore, I'm kind of curious if they'll either continue with the series, or if they'll quietly drop it at the end of the day here now. So, but I think there's still probably room to start other stuff here. And again, I mean, like, potentially, maybe I would love to see Bill Burr being like an undercover an undercover Republic agent at the end of the day, because I think I just like enjoy watching Bill Burr as well. I think he's got, and again, he's such an interesting character where he's like smart mouthing all the Republics, all the Republic people, where he's just like, yo, come on, let's do this, and they're like, no, we got to do it this way. Who cares?
Well, okay, so there are a lot of really memorable characters, and I think one of the things it does nicely is it does a nice job between melding new characters with old characters.
Yes.
And I think any of these spin-off series need to continue to do that.
Well,
they need to pull in things we recognize and go, oh.
Well, the second season more so, I think, because again, you get that very early on with like Boba Fett's armor, and then the Night Owls and the Dark Saber, like all those like a lot of that stuff wasn't fully existed in the first season. Like the first season, if you never knew anything about Star Wars, there wasn't a whole lot to call back on outside of, I'd seen, in your case in particular, you had only ever seen the movies.
Yeah, only ever seen the movies.
And
but you had vehicles that looked like, you had X-Wings, you had
all of the classic hallmarks of what was modern day Star Wars.
Well, and I would say in season 1 you had the Sand People, which for me were very, I remember the first time I ever saw those.
Were callbacks, but they weren't callbacks to specific characters or events.
The Jawas. Well, but you're on Tatooine and you've got...
Yeah, but Tatooine's kind of like, like everyone finds their way into like that one random city that everyone ends up passing through at some point or another. Like everyone goes through Phoenix when they're flying at some point or another, whether you want to or not.
Understood, but I think because you meet the Jawas in A New Hope,
you see
early on.
Yeah, you see the Jawas there as well. But season 2 really does call back to specific characters and events more so.
Yeah,
and especially in the sense of like, again, the Dark Saber being such a big deal means, like, that's the Mandalorian. Oh, we're going to get more Mandalorian stuff. Ooh. And then, obviously, you get Boba Fett, which we kind of all knew was coming at some point.
Well, and I assumed that the Dark Saber was introduced because somehow you were going to, if you were going to have a third season, force a decision between who's going to save Mandalore, and is that going to become the next quest?
Yeah, and what I really think is actually going to end up happening here is that it's the Mandalorian on the run from other Mandalorians who want that saber.
And he doesn't really want the saber. Can't he just hide it somewhere? Yeah,
but people are still going to come after him because they now know he's the one with the Dark Saber.
And he knows where it is, even if he says he doesn't have it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I don't have it anymore. I sold it. Yeah, that's going to go over well with the locals. Yeah. And at a certain point here, it's like a bargaining chip as well. It's like, hey, like, leave me alone. I've got the Dark Saber. Or maybe at a certain point, he's like, you know what? I'm going to push the wave going forward for all Mandalorians.
We're going to put those helmets back on.
Those helmets stay on going forward.
So that in and of itself is an interesting question.
Yeah.
Now he has taken the helmet off, and he is engaged with another human being face to face.
Luke certainly saw his face.
And
I
presume
Baby
Yoda saw his face.
And I presume that everyone else on that bridge saw that face as well at the end of the day.
He's got his back to them, but
I presume as much. If that's not the case, potentially, but I mean, like, I just assume at that point, like, he's more relevant of putting the helmet on and off, potentially. And also potentially not wearing the armor as much either, which would be kind of interesting, like, not wearing all that armor all the time.
Certainly makes him multidimensional.
Yeah, it gives you more opportunities, and again, like, I'd like to see, more of Pedro Pascal as well. He's got an interesting face and look to him, and you've done a lot with him already for 2 seasons with having him purely behind the mask. But just to see him acting in episode 7 without the mask on, was a real nice thing as well, because again, you can see his uncomfortableness. You can see his
in that bar scene with the Imperial
with the Imperial officers. Yeah, like you can clearly see his tension and his
almost autistic.
Yeah,
in its own way, because he doesn't want to make eye contact. He doesn't want to.
I think that we've had 2 seasons with him without the mask on. It'd be interesting to see a little bit with him more commonly without the mask on, so we have a more potentially 3D character. Because again, at a certain point here, you can't hide the fact that we've now all kind of seen his face already, and obviously one of the big things in filming obviously is that if you can't hide it, feature it.
Interesting. Okay.
Because again,
I would have liked to have seen him engage in the conversation with Mayhew about the villagers when he was talking about these people, and understand what the Mandalorians' take on that was. He's not a political animal, and he really
is just going through the world and just living his life for the sake of just kind of like, today I eat bread, tomorrow I eat steak. Moving on.
Well, and for the Mandalorian, the Jedi are
theoretically they're sworn enemies.
Yeah, and yet he's finding them, he's cooperating with them, he's defending them. as he does with Ashoka. And
be kind of interesting here that if, like, in the middle of the chase here, like, he's not communicated or talked to by... Because Mark Hamill's made no bones about it. He would love to do more Star Wars stuff.
Yeah.
He would really like to continue doing more Star Wars stuff, especially because, like, you know, Harrison Ford, you know, doesn't want to do more Star Wars stuff. He famously did not want to do Return of the Jedi at all.
Yeah.
He famously said, "No, I did my 2 movies. My story is over. Like, there's no reason for me to come back." You know, and now, especially in this case, he's just dead. I mean, him coming back for Episode 9 here was like, because we all kind of knew that how much Harrison Ford didn't want to come back to play Han Solo. At that point here, it's like, no, my character's dead. He's dead. I'm moving on with my career and do other stuff here. Mark Hamill.
Yeah, I don't want to be typecast, but I'll do another Indiana Jones.
We'll do 3 of them and then do Crystal Skull and basically just bury the entire series.
Well, but the rumor is that there's another one coming out.
Yes, there is.
Yeah.
Does it exist like the Crystal Skull does? No, it does not.
Oh, okay.
I saw the Crystal Skull. My mind hurts.
Never saw it.
Yes, you're not missing anything. As far as I'm concerned, you know, Raiders of the...
Indy's dead.
Indy's dead, you know, like... Indy is not dead. Indy is retired from treasure hunting. He's just a history teacher, and, like, other people are bugging him for his stories, and he's trying to fend off the college-age women that are trying to you know... Entice him at the end of the day, yeah. But no, I mean... But in general, like, Mark Hamill's very much interested in doing more stuff here. It'd be nice to see, because again, clearly, like, again, they did.
He's had his own revival.
He's got his own revival, but, like, you know, clearly the technology worked this time, where, like, they were able to age him down, and he clearly looked like Mark Hamill, you know, like.
Yeah, looked age appropriate.
It's not like when we had Rogue One, where we had Moff Gideon, where that was a little bit of an uncanny valley there.
Well, I wasn't happy with Carrie Fisher.
That look. See, yeah. I liked Carrie Fisher more than I liked Moff Gideon, because Moff Gideon, I think because we saw more of Moff Gideon, that, like, you could clearly see a lot more of that this wasn't the original actor that portrayed him. But with Carrie Fisher, like, I didn't see her long enough to be.
It's very quick.
To be very quick, and I didn't see her long enough to be disgusted by it. And
I found it off-putting.
Okay. But, I mean, like, did you have that same reaction with Luke Skywalker this time, though?
No.
I think so, yeah.
I was relieved.
And it's, again, like, the technology's getting a lot better in this particular case. Especially,
so did the cast know that that's who it was going to be?
I would assume that, like, I don't know. I mean, that'd be an interesting question. Like, did you know it was Luke Skywalker at the very end that was going to show up? Or, like, well, yeah, I read the script. Or it was, like, you know.
My understanding was it didn't identify who it was in the script, because they didn't want it to get out. Yeah.
And that would make a lot of sense here, I mean, especially as a season-ending episode here.
Yeah. So my understanding was it wasn't identified in the script. What I haven't heard is whether or not.
It'd be an interesting question to ask the actors here at the end of the day.
If they knew who it was going to be. Because obviously the person playing it, I assume they masked Mark Hamill's face over? Or is that why the cape was quite so big?
So during the actual action scenes, that was somebody else of Mark Hamill build.
Right.
But when it was actually, like, when you actually got to see his face, that was actual Mark Hamill.
Yeah, that I knew.
That part was actually Mark Hamill, and they just
aged down.
De-aged him here.
Yeah.
Now, keep in mind, they did the same thing with Samuel L. Jackson in Captain Marvel as well.
Yeah.
And that wasn't quite so jarring.
I thought that was well done, actually. I didn't have any problems with that.
Yeah, me neither. I like that one a lot. So, again, I think they learned their lessons from that and did similar technology for that to get Mark Hamill at that point here.
Yeah.
But again, Mark Hamill has made no bones about it. He would like to continue doing more stuff here, and I've enjoyed seeing him doing more stuff here, especially, you know, like, it'll be hard to get, like, a Princess Leia sort of in there as well. I don't think you add her in at this point.
Well, in part because we know the actress is dead.
Yeah.
And you know, to have somebody else play her would just feel wrong.
Yeah, there's that.
I always thought it would be interesting to have a storyline that was her life before A New Hope.
And then again, I think that could be interesting too.
In which case, I think you would find somebody else who could play her.
Yeah, and again, Jimmy Smits, I think, continuing to be the father, again,
Yeah.
do the age thing where you age
Yeah.
him down a little bit more. And literally, I think every episode could be like a year in the life of Leia.
Yeah.
You know, like this episode was this and it was that. It was this portion of her life. And then you get to like just before.
But talk about the political things that were happening, because that must have been just a really.
No, you keep the political stuff in the background until she gets older and older and it becomes more in the forefront. So
Do you have, and maybe you have the suggestion that she might be force sensitive?
Yeah, but you can kind of tailor that in there a little bit. Again, if it were me, what I would do is I would keep it mostly on her life, but then whenever you see her father like talking about stuff, like you were just interrupting him after he's talking about Empire something or other, and like how dare they do this and this, and then like so it's kind of always in the background as the events happening in the background, because we all can kind of just safely assume what's going on so long as you remind us of it that it's going on. But I think as you get closer and closer and closer in age to when the character would have been on, Rogue One as we get closer and closer to what would be Rogue One period here, that like you start bringing that up louder and louder to the point where she starts making a point of it in like I guess like an episode 4 or 5 or something in here like snaps and makes her like want to focus on it more.
Well, and if we're going to talk about backstories for characters, it'd be interesting to know about Rey's parents.
Oh, I actually don't think so at all.
No?
No.
Why not?
I don't see a lot of value in it at the end of the day. I mean, I kind of see an interest in kind of wanting to know, like, the children of the Emperor. Did he had children?
That he had children. Who was his wife? What was she like?
Yeah, like...
Or was it not a wife? Or what?
Yeah, like, how did that kind of happen here? But, like, I don't know what more could be gleaned off it that would either make me care for them more or less. Because, again, you assume that they were good people because they hid Rey on a planet.
Yeah.
Where supposedly the Empire would never get to her. But, like... And they sacrificed themselves, but I don't know... It's a lot of the same reason why I don't care all that much about Thomas and Martha Wayne in the new Batman series.
Uh-huh.
Because, like, I don't really need to know more about them because I already know who they are.
It doesn't help me.
It doesn't help me. Now, again, like, if it's...
And it may pierce what your mind has created for them.
And again, now keep in mind, that was a lot of the problem that happened with the prequels as well. Because, again, everyone had this preconceived notion of where Darth Vader came from. I still, to this day, really do believe that Luke Skywalker should have been the grandson of Darth Vader. Because the way they describe the old hokey religions of the Sith and Jedi makes it sound as if, like, it was it's been hundreds of years versus at that point in time, it was just 19 years ago.
Yeah. And
all these people are well over the age of 19, and it's really easily one of these things where it's like, come on guys, you guys know about Jedi. Like, it's not like some hokey religion. You literally were in the army, and you were in the New Republic Navy. Like, you were literally watching the Clone Wars unfold.
Yeah.
And even like Obi-Wan here, like when Luke Skywalker says you were in the Clone Wars, it's like, oh yeah, like that long time ago, and that makes it seem like hundreds and hundreds of years ago. And I still have this difficulty bridging the notion of, Ewan McGregor as like in his like 40s, and then 20 years later he's now, who's the actor that played Obi-Wan Kenobi in the later films? Alec
Guinness, yeah.
And Alec Guinness would have been in his later 60s, maybe early 70s by that point when he did those roles. I have a hard time bridging 20 years aging you that much, too.
So we have continuity issues.
I have continuity issues.
Yeah.
Okay. I more like the idea of Luke Skywalker being, like, the grandchild of or the grandchild of, like, Darth Vader here, potentially, or, like...
Then how does he get out of Darth Vader's grasp, then? Then you have to create the story of his son.
Yeah. That's where, like, I have a problem with there, too.
Yeah.
I would have preferred, again, like, if the Jedi religion was like this, if the Empire had been around for the last, 100 some odd years, and the Jedi were this old hokey thing that's, underground and not seen very commonly anymore, they meet, once a year at, a weird planet where it's like, hey, guys, remember that time when we were cool? Yeah. Great, everyone go back into hiding.
So we're having high school reunions.
Yeah, having, high school reunions occasionally every couple of years, and they occasionally flare up issues, and the Empire comes in, and they're like, no, we missed the Jedi. I still didn't see him. Gotta get rid of all of them. Damn cockroaches. I don't know. Maybe that's the answer.
I guess my I've always taken issue, strangely enough, with the idea that you secret away the one child and hide it with Jimmy Smits's family, Princess Leia. You secret her away, and then the other one you leave with his correct last name, so that he's easy to find. You can look him up in the yellow pages, and you place him with his uncle. That's not the most obvious place to put him.
Yeah, and clearly there was a funeral for Padme. It's not as if they wouldn't be a report on there. Padme, I remember Padme being a lot more pregnant-y looking. I wonder what happened there.
Well, in Leia, Luke asks Leia, "What do you remember of your mother?"
It's yeah,
very little, which would imply that she lived some time with her mother, and that's not true.
Yeah. Again, this is my same reason why I think Luke and Leia's mother should have been a concubine to Darth Vader. Potentially, if you had if you had Darth Vader in a moment of weakness, and the names given were were Skywalker at the end of the day here, because this concubine knew Anakin's original name or something. Especially if the woman was a much, much older woman, in her 50s, I would say, maybe. Because then you give the impression that she knew what Darth Vader was before putting on the mask. But then you also then wonder here, well, how did he get into the mask? How was Obi-Wan his teacher? Again, I like the notion here that it's been a couple hundred years, and that people that are force sensitive live for hundreds of years.
Well, because you got Yoda at 800.
Yeah, you got Yoda 700, 800 years or something, and then Obi-Wan being 110, maybe 105 years old. Sure, maybe, why not? And then Darth Vader not being too dissimilar at that point here, yeah, maybe. I also like the idea here that Darth Vader, kept his wife, and he had he had a wife and such, and his wife was. Now that I think about it here, Padme survives, but she was never pregnant in the beginning, and so he keeps her more like a political prisoner than a wife, but he calls her, but they're both husband and wife, and she eventually just escapes one day and happens to be pregnant, gives birth, is kind of hiding with Jimmy Smits in hiding, and gives birth, and is and Obi-Wan just happens to come by as well, sensing.
It sounds like you got a good piece of fanfic going.
I'm working. I've been shopping it here in my brain for the last 4.5 seconds.
Oh, okay, there we go.
Working through the smaller, insignificant details.
I'm just saying, there are backstories that would be interesting.
Yeah. So.
Okay.
But we're going to post all the notes here for the second season on our website at thenerdtutorialpodcast.com. And then if you want to follow us as well, we continue discussion on our Facebook group at facebook.com/nerdtutorialpodcast. And if you want to follow some of the other topics we've been following as well, I'm not going to add The Mandalorian here just yet, because I'm sure we're going to get a lot of the cancel Disney Plus and the Gina, cancel Pedro Pascal sort of stuff on there as well. So I don't want to flood the Twitter timeline with that right now. But we follow all of our old topics on our Twitter page, as well as any sort of comments, critiques, and suggestions for future episodes. You can let us know at the nerd_tutorial on Twitter. We're not going to do WandaVision next week. I had been planning on doing WandaVision next week, but the episodes are still coming out. So in 2 weeks' time, we'll do WandaVision.
Okay.
Because that's also on Disney Plus right now. They're only up to episode 6 as of last night. Okay. And there's 9 episodes in total.
Okay.
So if we do 2 weeks, we'll do an episode on the tutorial on what WandaVision is, and a little bit more into these characters, and kind of give you the hint of what's happening because of what MCU stuff was happening last.
Okay.
And then go from there.
Okay.
But we'll have to wait 2 weeks to get to that here. In the meantime, I will find a new topic for next week.
Cool.
So, but in the meantime, we hope that you guys stay safe out there in these weird times, and we'll see you guys again next time.
Bye.